Mineral Resources and Energy, Gwede Mantashe, says the situation at Grootes On mine in Springs in the east of Johannesburg is now a hostage situation. Over 400 mine workers and Grootes On mine have not resurfaced following an underground sit-in. And the municipal manager of the troubled Mafube local municipality in the Free State, Muthusi Lepiana, says they are hoping for a speedy resolution to the municipality's financial woes. Last week, the municipality issued a memo to its employees stating that they might not receive their salaries for December, January and February. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Truck fire incident at Majuba Pass. Now, this was underway last night. There's still a truck burning there as well this morning. So, truckers and motorists being stacked currently between Newcastle and Falkirk around the Majuba Pass area. Also, the scene at Murchison still obstructed after community unrest and protest there erupted last night. Port Shepstone through to Harding. That section of the N2 still currently blocked off. Truck crash coming out of Pretoria, the N4 down towards Simon for Mooten. If you're on your way out of Pretoria towards Bronkhorstspruit on that Emma Leflani Highway, there is some queuing pressure into that one. And Cape Town, Marine Drive, a little bit easier out of Tableview, but it's not all good news. There's some roadworks around Loxton Road, around the Woodbridge Island in Milnerton. So Marine Drive, once you get past the Paddocks Mall into that Milnerton area, starts to back up quite heavily. I'm Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ray Machlaka, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. All good, thanks.
Gosh, you can hear it's the last working Monday of the year. Listen to Ray. Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, both markets are mostly down. It is a big economic week for the US. Investors are anticipating consumer inflation data in the US and an interest rate decision from the US Central Bank later in the week. There is still a possibility that the US Central Bank might increase interest rates because inflation is still high, and before the US market officially opens later today, the futures market is down. Nasdaq, Dow Jones and S&P futures are each down 0.1%. In Asian markets, Japan's Nikkei is up 1.4%. China's Shanghai Composite is down 0.6%, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng is down 2%. And the US dollar to the rand is weaker at the 19 rand level. The local currency is 19.01.
And consumer inflation data for November, that'll come out this week.
Yeah, and that data will be released by Statistics South Africa on Wednesday. In October, the inflation rate increased for a second straight month, reaching 5.9%. The many petrol and diesel price increases and a weaker rand have driven the inflation rate up this year. These factors have also led to higher food prices, with food inflation being up. Economists from Investec expect the inflation rate to ease in November. This is because during November, the petrol price dropped by nearly 2 rand a litre, and this would have eased the cost of living.
And Cabinet's approving the new energy plan.
Yeah, this plan is called an Integrated Resource Plan, or the IRP. It is an updated plan that details South Africa's future energy needs and sets timeframes around the decommissioning of older coal-fired power stations. The 2019 version of the IRP is considered outdated because it does not provide for the procurement of sufficient electricity to meet the country's needs. Electricity Minister Hosienso Ramokgopa says the draft IRP has now been approved by Cabinet. The plan has not yet been published, but it will be released soon for public comment.
Ray Machlaka, thank you very much indeed. Ray, of course, back in an hour's time. More business news through the day here on SAFM.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mantulu at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs at UNISA. Good morning.
Fresh morning and Jumbo Africa to the listeners.
Egyptians voting, they started voting yesterday. General Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, he's going to get a third term?
Stephen, this is a field marshal who came into power 10 years ago in 2019 after overthrowing Mohamed Morsi following a massive protest. At the same time, others say it was a military coup. So elections have begun yesterday, Stephen. It's 9 to 9. We call it from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. They will close tomorrow on Tuesday. They are voting from Sunday yesterday to Monday and Tuesday. We are talking about 67 million here eligible voters, and the results to come out on the 18th of this month. So we are watching Cairo deciding, Stephen, because there are challenges in Egypt. You have a war in the Middle East. You have a crisis of corruption. You have a conflict over the Great Renaissance Dam, but they are having these elections. As I said earlier, it was a premature elections that were planned for 2024. Now they're in 2023 this week in Cairo.
And then in the DRC in Rwanda, the president of the DRC, Felix Tshisekedi, he says Paul Kagame is like Adolf Hitler. Wow.
Stephen, he said this was in the capital city of the South Kivu, Bukavu, next to Goma. At the same time, next to Rwanda, if you say Gisenyi. This is a campaign, Stephen. Remember, it's election period and a peak. We are doing countdown for DRC 9 days before DRC decides. Tshisekedi went on to hit on Kagame, Stephen, as you said, comparing him with Adolf Hitler, saying that he wants to expand the eastern part of the DRC. Hence, he used this concept of Adolf Hitler and the notion of expansionist aims to take over North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri region. Remember, there have been conflict between these two leaders. Tshisekedi blaming Kagame for supporting the M23, the March 23 movement, M23, for their attack towards the DRC. So he has come out clear blaming Kagame to be Adolf Hitler of Africa.
And then Botswana and Zimbabwe, they're managing this deal, so you won't need a passport to go from one country to the other. Is that right?
Interestingly, that Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa and Mokgweetsi Masisi, Stephen, they're engaging on this trend that is moving in the African continent. We have been talking about Kenya, Seychelles, Gambia, Benin, where they are, and Rwanda also, that they are joining on the list of relaxing their borders. So they are looking at the issues around unrestricted travel between Zimbabweans and the people from Gaborone, from Botswana, that they'll have to walk in, Stephen, without having to use this visa regulation. So it appears that this is a new move to support the Africa continental free trade amongst the SADC countries, looking at Gaborone as well as Harare.
And then the situation regarding the Africa peer review mechanism, it's based here. It's 20 years already.
I don't know whether you still recall, Stephen, this 2003 just came out of NEPAD and it's revived by Professor Eddie Maloka in 2016. This week, Stephen, there are activities going on between many African policymakers who are visiting South Africa in Johannesburg to celebrate this Africa peer review mechanism. The first country being Ghana, Stephen, I still recall in 2006, and we followed South Africa, Kenya. I think we're in the second review, Stephen, but I doubt about this report, Stephen, whether do they make sense to our people if they are on politics, governance, culture? Do people always implement them, Stephen, member states or government technocrats? Because this is an important instrument, actually, APRM, where we are assessing ourselves, we are scrutinizing the issues of governance and leadership in the African continent. So there have been many activities starting last night. It will end this week, Thursday, Stephen, in Gauteng. It's somewhere in the uptown, Stephen, in Sandton.
And then we're going all the way back to the 11th of December, an important day, 1961.
It's 62 years ago, Stephen. Just after yesterday, we know it was International Human Rights Day, but the receiving of the Nobel Peace Prize for Kumkani Albert Lithuli was done 62 years ago. And on this day, he was able to deliver the Nobel Peace Prize lecture, where he focused on the issues of Sharpeville massacre. He focused on the situation in South Africa of apartheid. And remember, he was given only a 10-day passport, Stephen, although his ban was lifted. For him just to attend the Oslo Awards to receive the Nobel Peace Prize award of Albert Lithuli. And like today, like I said, Stephen, it was a lecture, and we know other three people from South Africa who have this award. It was Archbishop Desmond Tutu, 1984, and 30 years ago, both former President Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk jointly received this award. Asante Sana SG, as was still leading the conversation, SAFM, observing the Reconciliation Month.
Thanks very much indeed, Russ Advocate Sipho Mantura, of course, back with us tomorrow. Tomorrow, more news from our continent through the day here on SFM.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
So you would have seen so many new political parties starting. And we just look over the last little while, the last sort of 5 years, you've seen Action SA, Rise Mzansi. We've got the new one, Roger Jardine started, Change Starts Now, for example. There's the coalition that we're seeing in some of the opposition parties. Has any of it changed how you view politics? I mean, has any of it suggested to you that something's going to change next year? Any of the new parties sort of made you think, actually, maybe this will happen? Or do you think it's actually just more of the same? I mean, some of the people involved aren't politicians. They aren't people that we've seen doing it before. I mean, do you get a sense that actually anything's going to change? Or do you think it's all just going to be more of the same? The new political parties, any of them doing anything for you? 086 000 2032.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
The Association of Private Security Owners of South Africa are asking that women security guards be taken off night shifts in certain areas after a really horrific attack in Merebank and eThekwini 2 weeks ago. A gang of armed men attacked the Department of Transport officers there. They tied up security workers and then they raped the 3 female security officers who were on duty at the time. Bolele Saliwe is the Deputy President of the Association of Private Security Owners of South Africa. Bolele, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners. Thank you for having me.
This is a really horrific attack. How do you believe your industry should respond to this?
Yes, I agree. It's a very horrific attack, quite brutal and disgusting. But firstly, before I respond, I'd like to also commend the provincial police structures for making an arrest within 24 hours of the incident. In terms of what is required, I mean, it's a collaboration that is required between the entire security clusters. There's certain things that need to be done by us as the employers and also within the clients. You actually mentioned at the start of your show, at the start of this interview, that we need to look at the possibility of not having female security officers at night. This does not suggest at all that female security officers are not as competent as the male officers, but we do find that when these attacks happen, they tend to be more brutal against women than they are against men. And to protect them, it does make sense to, if possible, to then place them on day shift rather than on night shift.
Have you seen attacks like this before? I'm sure, I hate to say it, I'm sure it's happened before, but I've never heard of something this bad before.
We've seen attacks like this. It's generally on men. For example, one of the reasons we tend to not advocate for guards being armed, other than ones who are well trained on tactical response, is that the incidents that we've seen is where guards are attacked and then they're disarmed and then killed with the same firearms that they have. So those are the ones that seem to be more common, or where they tie up the guards, beat them up, and then take, for example, at ESCOM sites, they take the cables. But the rape is not as prevalent. But I can recall about 1 or 2 instances before. But I mean, this is quite a horrendous one, especially making the male officers watch while they perform this ugly act.
Yeah. But Lela, is something, I mean, have you found that your security guards are being attacked more now? We all know that the rates of violent crime are increasing. We've all seen this. And so, I mean, your members, the people who work in your industry are at the forefront of this. They're the ones who kind of, stuck in the middle. They're the security guards, I can use a different phrase, on the front line. I mean, is it becoming more and more dangerous to be a security guard?
Yes, I think obviously if we look at the social, economic, or rather what is going on in the economy now, I think especially after COVID-19, there are a lot more people without jobs, and obviously with any social ills, crime is one of the things that tend to increase. We are finding that there's a lot more attacks, and with these attacks, there's a lot more people in terms of the gangs, and they tend to be armed. So it is imperative that we do look at ways in which to support these officers, And when I say ways, is there's obviously lots of different ways that we can do this. One is obviously in terms of preventing the entry into these sites. At any given point, I mean, these people are alone at night. You you cannot have every armed reaction vehicle at every site. I mean, we tend to spread those around, which is why we then arm these guys with panic buttons, so that in the event of any attack, they can at least press the panic button and have backup of the armed response.
To implement the idea of not having women security guards on shift at night, and I can understand the thinking behind it, Bolela. I mean, I can see the debate around it. But it would also disrupt the industry quite a bit, I imagine. I mean, you would have shift systems that take into account night shifts versus day shifts, time off, all of those things. And security guards already are usually 12 hours on, 12 hours off, but it would be very disruptive to the industry. And yet, if I were one of the security guards affected, I would probably be pushing for this.
Yes, definitely. If you look at the incident at Merebank, what was done was probably trying to mitigate the safety of the women, because if you look at the shift, it was even split. 6 security officers, 3 were female, 3 were male. But in this instance, it didn't mitigate against the attack, which then supports the cause to actually have women off the night shift completely. But in terms of shift systems, I mean, it's something that you can work around. It also depends, obviously, per company on the number of security officers that they have.
Bolela, thanks very much indeed. Bolela Saliwa is the Deputy President of the Association of Private Security Owners of South Africa. Really, a very distressing sign of where we are as a country. 13 minutes to 7.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, voice notes coming through, some of them about political parties, some of them about other things this morning on 0614104107.
Good morning, SAFM. All those new political parties are not patriots. Those people who are forming a new political party, they are so greedy, like the ANC. Instead of standing for the South Africans to liberate from the ANC, they are forming a new political party just for money. Just they are after money. They don't want to liberate South Africans. I think it's Robert Cullen Jimison.
Robert, thank you. All right, so very cynical about new political parties. I imagine other people will be cynical as well, depending on where they sit.
Hi, Stephen. This is KM. I just want to say that this thing of new parties, it is manifesting now, the principle that says in the Freedom Charter, the people shall govern. The people shall govern. Mark my words, the people are going to govern this country. And then there is another one which says South Africa belongs to all who lives in it, black and white. No government shall have authority unless it is with the will of the people. Now the governing party must know. They must be prepared, this ANC. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Interesting to hear that sort of view, a different view on this. And, of course, difficult to know what's going to happen with small parties as well. Some of them could well grow over time. Some of them may well sort of explode over time. By explode, I mean grow quickly. So difficult to know what is going to happen and what isn't going to happen, frankly. I do think, though, that what it shows is that people are frustrated, and they're frustrated about many issues. That, for me, is what really is what you learn from the sort of huge number of new political parties that are starting. I think that's what it sort of says, is that, you really are seeing a situation where you've got new political parties, that people are frustrated, and people are really sort of suggesting that actually they want some kind of change, but maybe the problem is that people don't know where they want to go. Kathy on the line from Nelspruit, Bombela. Hi, Kathy. Kathy, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Yeah. I sent a voice note, but apparently you're having problems with it, so I'm a bit caught off guard.
I'm sorry, Kathy.
But not a problem. I just wanted to ask whether it's unreasonable to sort of take David Teague out of the conversation. He's a young man. I think he's learned his lesson to probably speak with more circumspection in future. The fact of the matter is that he is Jewish, and he made a supportive statement regarding Israel. The rest of the politicians and people in South Africa who are supporting the Palestinians are all wearing scarves, supporting the Palestinian cause. And very often hate speech is being used here, which could cause more violence. And I'm just asking you, can you not take his name out of the conversation and maybe just hold hands and pray for peace in the Middle East, and particularly for cool heads there? But I think he's learned his lesson, if you could call it that. Could we maybe just leave him out of the conversation from now on? Is it possible to do that?
I don't know, Kathy. I raised the issue of his age at the start of this, and I said, he is of age, so he's 18, but he is young, as you say, and I did raise it, Kathy in Bombela, thank you, because I did think it was an interesting part of this. And there are conversations around what do we want our sports people to do? Must they believe certain things? Must they not believe other things? And we'll talk a bit more about it, actually, after 8:30, Kathy. I think you raise a very interesting aspect of this. It's one of the elements of it. And I suspect that David Tika probably wouldn't say something like that again, but I don't know. And that takes you down a whole different line of questioning, Is someone in trouble for what they say? Is someone in trouble for what they believe? Do we go and ask everyone who represents the country what they believe? I don't know how that ends. It's 9 minutes now to 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Busy start this Monday. We've got a crash involving a truck coming out of Pretoria. It's on the N4, just past Rousseau Street as you get through towards Simon Vermooten. There's some queuing pressure there. Also, crash on Joburg's N3 South near London Road. So coming down from Marlborough Drive, that is heavy. And there's a backlog at Sprayview between Leondale Road and Heidelberg Road on the N3 into Joburg. Also, a collision scene leaving Durban on your way through to Pietermaritzburg. That crash just past the sort of M13 ramp from Hillcrest. So Key Ridge through to Cliffdale on your way to PMB. Long queue of traffic. Also in Durban, a crash on the N2 South between Cement Factory and the Higginson Highway exit, and that's already going slow as well. And burning trucks at Majuba Pass, the N11 currently blocked between Newcastle and Folkshurst. If you're a trucker, just hold back your trucks. It's quite volatile. I understand those are trucks burning because of some protest action there. Cape Town's N7 at Ford Trekker Road, that's looking busy both ways. And a roadwork surprising everyone coming along on Marine Drive. The restrictions there at Loxton Road, Woodbridge Island. It's a heavy queue from Racecourse Road and the Paddocks Mall side. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 35 Rand from Hatfield to Centurion. Is for Ikoko who steady chill on neutral on a downhill just to save fuel. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 35 Rand from Hatfield to Centurion Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
Chelsea FC is not impressed with their current position. They want to ensure Sheffield United grabs nothing at Stamford Bridge.
Raheem Sterling, the big dipper, Chelsea 11.
Meanwhile, Sheffield United are also not comfortable in the danger zone.
McBurney's header, and it drops into the far corner of the net.
Who will enjoy the festive season with victory? The Blues or the Blades? This is the Premier League. Catch the exhilarating clash between Chelsea FC and Sheffield United FC on Saturday, 16 December at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
6 minutes to 7. Good morning. Last week, the business rescue practitioners at the post office approving a plan that would finally see 6,000 people, more than that, losing their jobs. Around 400 post office branches around the country would be closed. The post office, as you know, in huge difficulties for a long time, needs a big bailout. At one point, was actually provisionally liquidated. Well, no surprise, of course, that unions are very worried about this and worried about people losing their jobs. Zwelinzima Vavi is the General Secretary of the South African Federation of Trade Unions. Mr. Vavi, good morning. Thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning, SG. Good morning to everybody listening.
You oppose the idea of job cuts, obviously. No one wants more people to be unemployed. What do you believe should happen at the post office?
Well, let me start by condemning the retrenchment itself, which is linked to the mismanagement of the post office, but also not just the post office, as you know, Stephen. This is a trend in South Africa of mismanagement of institutions that were inherited from the apartheid regime to solve the white problem, and the current mismanagement is actually leading to the opposite. They are worsening the crisis of the African majority, poverty, unemployment, and inequality. What a shame on the ANC that everything it has touched over the past 30 years have turned into being ashes. Post office, from post office to Telcom, Telcom to Transnet, Transnet to Petro SA, Petro SA to Tinel, Tinel to ESCOM. Everything that the comrades have been restructuring, inverted commas, have turned out to be a disaster for workers. 6,000 workers are now being retrenched, meaning that thousands and thousands of families, if you consider the fact that black people support up to 15 dependents, and it means a total disaster. Black Christmas yet again for the black majority in South Africa. We condemn this in the strongest terms.
And Mr.
But now we are facing a problem that, to come back to a question, we are facing a problem that the once colorful institution is on its knees, and the practitioner sees no option but to start with downsizing as usual. And we believe that this downsizing is going to lead to the privatization of the postal services in South Africa already. The South African post services are being overtaken by the private players.
Okay, Mr. Vavi, I'm sorry, I've let you speak for some time, and I do have other questions. So I accept what you say, that there's been big problems at many SOEs. I'm sure some people would point to examples to sort of dispute what you say, but let's put that to aside for one moment. Where the post office may be different is that around the world, post offices have battled to cope with technological change. Very few people send letters anymore. Everybody does it on email. If you want to send a document, you send it on WhatsApp. So let me put the question to you in another way. If you look at South Africa in the 21st century, where we are, our society with all of its problems and challenges and hopes and dreams, what role should the post office be playing in South Africa now?
We would have thought that the post office will play even an enhanced role, Stephen, irrespective of the advances of technology in South Africa, irrespective of the fact that up to 90% of the citizens are having cell phones in their phones and that they can communicate. But the poor of the poor have those cell phones without data. The poor of the poor are unemployed. They're in the rural areas. In fact, they have no access even to the network. I'm in my hometown now in Sada. I have to speak to the executives to get access to the MTN. There is no easy access. So the theory that people will have easy access to technological advances in South Africa that is so unequal, that have a large majority still trapped in squalor, in poverty, and without any means to ensure that those phones can work for them, or that they can be able to use the private services to send their posts and gifts and letters and everything to their families, is just a nice a story to tell that is not born out of any reality if you look at our own situation in our country.
Do you want Mark Barnes to come back? I can see you and he disagreeing on some things, but maybe agreeing on others. He seemed to make some progress.
No, he also was advocating for retrenchments. He was advocating for the privatization of the South African post offices. We don't want him back. We would have preferred that the practitioner will say, look, you can't close 1,266 branches, meaning that you have denied access to the postal services to the rural people who have no other means now to send their gifts around and or even their letters around. No, we wanted enhanced role. We wanted perhaps the retrenchment to be the retrenchments of the high-flying executives, the CEO of post offices earning a 5 million rands. Why don't you ever start there in amongst the fat cats, and instead of always looking at the most vulnerable members of the society, the workers, the women, that the African women that you're going to have to see joining the 11.7 million people who are already unemployed in the country.
Zwelinzi Mavavi, thank you, General Secretary of the South African Federation of Trade Unions. Well, in a few moments, you'll hear Roger Jardine. I think it's his first broadcast interview since yesterday's big announcement of his new political grouping. That to come. You with SAFM leading the conversation. At 7 o'clock, Outrance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 38462. Now that's good news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thank you, Stephen. In your top stories, leader of new party calls for unity among opposition, and Mafube municipality workers face a bleak festive season. This is SAFM News. A very good morning. I am Luyanda Maume. The leader of a new political movement, Roger Jardine, says it is time for all political parties and civil society to unite and work together to bring about political change. Jardine was speaking at the launch of his new political movement, Change Starts Now, in Rivoli, Johannesburg, yesterday afternoon. The movement, Change Starts Now, is set to participate in the 2024 general elections. He says South Africans should have other options to choose from apart from the ANC in the upcoming polls.
We should not be forced to choose between those who only want to break things and those who have long ago forgotten how to build things. We should not act as if we have no choice and that we have no choice but to let the ANC back into power. This government, which has become the face of corruption, the face of an uncaring, self-absorbed and incompetent state, there is another way.
ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has criticized the launch of the new movement. Speaking at the Wedela Community Hall in the West Rand yesterday, Mbalula described Jardine as nothing but a funded project.
These people, Kutiwa, they have been given a lot of money because this thing yabo abayqalayo, for it to have credence, it must have people with struggle credentials. So that is what they do. They are forming a lot of small political parties to defeat the ANC. They put a lot of money and they are putting a lot of money to support this project. Roger Jardine is a project. We know that. It's a project, and that project will be defeated.
The Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Gwede Mantashe, says the situation at Gold One mine in Springs in the east of Johannesburg is now a hostage situation. The minister met with the mine management, labor unions and the police yesterday. Over 400 mine workers at Gold One mine have not resurfaced following an underground sit-in. He says they've handed the situation over to the police.
We came here to deal with an issue of a sit-in, but that has turned from a sit-in to a hostage drama because people are held underground by force and a few people come out assaulted badly. And what was actually interesting is that a message in writing has been sent from underground which is purporting to be from AMCO, which put a number of demands. If they are not answered within 2 hours, they will kill a shift force underground.
Judgment is expected to be delivered in the bail application of the University of Fort Hare senior official Isaac Plaatjes. He is the head of investigations and vetting services at the institution in the Eastern Cape. His legal representatives argued in the Dimbaza Magistrates Court that there's no direct link between him and the murder of staff members Petros Roots and the Vice-Chancellor's bodyguard Mboneli Vesele. Plaatjes told the court that he would afford 50,000 Rand bail. He faces 2 counts of murder and conspiracy to commit murder. A man accused of raping a 26-year-old woman who's a traditional healer in Kimberley in the Northern Cape is expected to appear in the local magistrates court today. The man allegedly raped the healer at his house while she was there to perform a cleansing ritual at his home. Neria Hlakuza reports.
During the accused's last appearance, his defense team told the court that their client has not been receiving his medication on time while in custody. They further argued about the poor conditions that he is allegedly subjected to. The National Prosecuting Authority has confirmed that the accused is not a first-time offender and he is currently facing another rape case, which is sitting at the Northern Cape High Court. Meanwhile, Kimberley-based traditional healers have signed a petition calling for the rape accused to remain in custody. Neria Hlakuza, SABC News, Kimberley.
And finally, the municipal manager of the troubled Mafube local municipality in the Free State, Muthusi Lipiana, says they are hoping for a speedy resolution to the municipality's financial woes. Last week, the municipality issued a memo to its employees stating that they might not receive their salaries for December, January and February. The memo states that the situation was brought about by one of its creditors, the Municipal Workers Retirement Fund, which approached the High Court to get an order to attach the municipality's accounts. Lepiana explains.
It was the plan of the municipality to pay that creditor in terms of the financial recovery plan that has just been adopted. Now, the discussions are still underway between the creditor and the municipality. We hope that we are going to resolve the matter and be able to pay the salaries as it is supposed to be the case.
Recapping your top story, the leader of a new political movement, Roger Jardine, says it is time for all political parties and civil society to unite and work together to bring about political change. For SAFM News, I am Luyanda Maume. Headlines at 7:30.
Luyanda, thank you. Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out. Is balancing your income statement harder than perfecting a traditional South African potjie? Outsurance is the secret sauce to managing your finances. They're so confident that they can beat your current car insurance premium that you can ask them for 500 Rand if they're more expensive. That's a monthly saving on your current premium or 500 Rand cash. Claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years, ask for 1,500 Rand instead. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. That's out to 38462. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSB. T's and C's apply.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, we've got rugby, and it was a tough weekend for both the SA women's and the men's sevens teams. And we also have bad weather suspending the Alfred Daniel Championships with Louis Oosthuizen and Schwartzel on top. All this and more just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Oh, good morning. Very busy one around the country. Still dealing with a truck crash leaving Pretoria on the N4. This is driving out towards Bronkhorstspruit. Truck involved in this collision, blocking a couple of lanes between Rousseau Street and Simon Vermooten. There's quite a backlog of traffic, N4 driving east into that. Joburg got a crash on the N3 south at London Road. That's quite a big backlog coming through from Lindbro Park. And Spruitview that we reported in on earlier. Some queues just passing Spruitview on your way towards Heidelberg Road. Protesting outside Lenasia Golden Highway at Nirvana Drive. So some additional delays there. The N11 remains blocked and closed at Majuba Pass. That is due to a truck fire incident. Probably a good idea to delay travel between Newcastle and Volksrust. There's also been a crash between Key Ridge and Cliffdale. So the N3 are routing out of Durban through to Pietermaritzburg. That's a heavy queue. You've also got queues on the M13 from Hillcrest arriving onto the N3. Also a crash going south on the N2 before the Higginson Highway exit. If you're embarking on a trip down towards the south coast, there's some queuing pressure there from Cement Factory. Cape Town busy on Jakes Kerville Drive at 4 Trekker Road in the heart of Goodwood, and roadworks on Marine Drive at Loxton Road, Woodbridge Island. That's causing a surprising delay coming out of the Sunset Beach area. Very heavy along the coast down in towards that Milnerton area.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 after 7. Good morning, you with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Well, lots coming up in the next little while. Roger Jardine, the leader of the party. Change starts now. They launched yesterday. You'll hear from him. And we'll sort of put a series of questions to him about what the plan is, why he's getting into politics, what happens next. You'll hear the view from Dr. Ralph Matega as well on that. I think starting a new political party in South Africa is tough. And I think people are sort of looking at whether it's the right thing to do or not. The fact that there's so many of them does tell us something that's happening in our country, though. We'll talk about that. Don't forget, from 8:30, around freedom of expression in these times. What is right? What is wrong? Where is the line? And that's, in a way, the tension you hear on SAFM Sunrise and SAFM all the time, the line, you know. What can you say and what can't you say? Also coming up, we'll talk a little bit more about the new CEO at Eskom, Dan Marakane, not a job I want. So we'll talk about that in about half an hour from now. Good morning, Monday morning, 9 after 7.
Keeping up with your TV license balance inquiries is now simpler than ever. No more waiting in queues, no more phone calls. Just SMS your ID or TV license account number to 44210 and secure your legal viewing fast and simple. Standard SMS rates will be charged. Terms and conditions apply. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference. The 22-man battle at Borussia Park is high-level evidence of how powerful 3 points is. Borussia Mönchengladbach and SV Werder Bremen are both in dire need of victory to create a crucial path to the top half of the German elite league. Who will dominate the 90 minutes? The Foles or the River Islanders? This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness the nail-biting clash between Borussia Mönchengladbach and SV Werder Bremen on Friday, 15 December at 9:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
11 after 7, good morning, you with SAFM. Well, over the weekend, the businessman, former chair of the First Rand Group, Roger Jardine, launching his new political movement. It's called Change Starts Now. Big event yesterday in Joburg. Jardine, as you know, a long history in business, was Director General in the first democratic government of Nelson Mandela. He says that he wants to remove what's become an uncaring, incompetent government. I should probably remind you that I've worked at a company where Jardine was the CEO, but I did not report directly to him. Well, Roger Jardine, the leader of Change Starts Now, is on the line. Roger, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
Why are you getting into politics?
Stephen, I've, over the years, like most South Africans, just been on the sidelines watching the slow decline and very fast decline of South Africa. And I concluded that we have a political problem in this country. We can put the best CEO in at Eskom, and I wish the new CEO well, or at Transnet, or at SAA, or you can choose an SOE. But we have a political problem, and if we don't fix the politics, there's no way out of where we are now. And that's why I decided to step forward.
I'm going to ask you, I think you might be on a speaker. If you can come off the speaker and go to the handset, we would appreciate it. I know once you start a call, you can't always do that, but if you can.
Yeah. No, I'm on a fixed line.
Oh, okay. All right.
Speaking to the receiver.
So what you launched yesterday, just to be clear, it's a political party. It's not a movement or something else. It's a political party. You want to go to Parliament.
Well, we launched a movement yesterday because we feel that first and foremost we need to talk to South Africans. Part of what we're trying to do is to mobilize a cross-section of society around what we think should be done. I think the answers are glaringly obvious, but we need to listen to our people. So the movement is called Change Starts Now. You'll see us out in communities, hearing directly from them. Concurrently, we are in the process of registering a political party. Our intention is very clear. We want to participate in the elections that are coming up next year. It is soon, but the call for change is urgent. And that's why we think we need to work in partnership with other parties and formations to put together a broad and diverse coalition.
How many people are part of your group at the moment, Roger? I mean, I know I've seen all the headlines, Murphy Morobe and Mark Hayward and Nicole Fritz. But in terms of actual people, I mean, is it 10 people that you're starting with? Is it 100? Is it more than that?
Well, remember, we're starting a movement. So this isn't a normal political paradigm where you have branches and members. I think modern politics has moved on. I'm sorry, I don't know why the echo is there. So we have a good core group of people, and one of the features of what we're doing is that we're positioning this as an intergenerational movement. So I have partnered with a young woman from Orange Farm called Moponi Moratani. She's my chief of staff. The deputy campaign manager to Murphy Morobe is Eric Derrida. He's 34. Moy is 33. So we have a very tight group of people that we've put together, and now we are busy bringing in people from communities around the country who will help us in organizing those interactions with broader society.
Roger, we're gonna call you back and see if we can improve the reception on that line, because I can hear that you're battling against an echo. Very difficult. I don't know if you've ever had that on the landline. When you get an echo like that, can be very difficult. We'll try and get a better line for you on that, just to continue that conversation. We'll speak to Dr. Ralph Mateja in a moment as well and get his views. Also, one of the key questions, of course, is why are we having so many new political parties, that we're seeing at the moment, and what does that tell us about our parties? All right, Roger Jardine, back with us now.
Okay.
Roger, there are many new political parties, as you know, and we've seen Rise Mzansi. If you go back a bit further, Action SA, there are others. Elections are only 6 months away. These other parties have a big head start on you. What's going to make your party different from all of the others? And there are many of them.
Well, I think there's room for a new voice. What we're going to bring, first of all, is we want to join together with a broad section of South Africans. So we will be speaking to other parties. We do think that there needs to be a broad and diverse coalition going into next year's election. But we will be approaching this from the position that our expressed intention is to be part of the process and to work towards fixing the state. And to do that, we must change our politics.
So change our politics to what?
Well, Stephen, in 2023, it cannot be that a grandmother has to sit in the sun waiting for a pension payout. There are very clear solutions to making those processes efficient. It cannot be that a student who relies on a NSFAS grant has to experience the slow clipping away of that grant through inefficient service providers. I think that the decisions that are being made are not being made in the interest of serving the people of this country. We need to improve basic services to people. And the way we do that is we approach it in a manner where we're not schizophrenic about the role of the private sector and other tried and tested institutions that are out there that can fix our infrastructure and deliver basic services to our people. I think we can bring that approach, which will make a material change in the short to medium term.
Fikile Mbalula, the Secretary General of the ANC, I know your movement only started yesterday, Roger, but he's already no fan of yours, has suggested, and you've been critical of his movement, of course, has suggested that you're a sort of agent of some kind. That wasn't quite his word, but that you're acting for business interests, and obviously your background in business is going to be an issue here, one way or another. What do you say to that? If you're saying there should be a bigger role for the private sector, that's immediately going to be used against you.
Well, look, South Africa is in a deep hole, right? The state is struggling with resources and with people. We need to harness the capacity and the financial resources where they can be found. The public sector and the private sector are two very different entities. The private sector is not the public sector. But our philosophy is, in a spirit of social solidarity, we have to bring them in to try and solve these issues that people are currently facing on the ground. Without any hint of schizophrenia, you can't on the one day say, come into work streams and help me solve problems, and the next day you condemn the private sector. So it's really about social solidarity and reaching across the aisle, as it were, to improve the lives of our people.
So there are plenty of political parties that will do a very good critique of the ANC, and that's politics. That's what opposition parties do to the governing party. The problem is to come up with something else. And let me just explain, perhaps just for myself, a little bit of a context. In the history of South Africa, if we take 1910 as the beginning of South Africa as a nation state, we could have other dates, but let's take that for now. Only one organization has actually tried to get votes from everybody in the country, and that's actually the ANC. And one of the reasons the ANC is under so much pressure now, part of it is through mistakes it's made in governance, and part of it is through the corruption we saw detailed at the Zondo Commission. But part of it is also because to create an organization that appeals to everybody is incredibly difficult. Other people have tried, other people are trying. What I'm kind of looking for, Roger, is why you think you're the right person to try.
Well, first of all, it's not one person show this. We're a very broad and diverse team. Secondly, I agree with you. We need to have defining principles of any political platform. Ours is simply put, we believe in social solidarity. If you're looking for a reference point, it's more a social democratic model where we harness a cross-section of society. And really, Stephen, I think the time for labels are over. If we could run a no-labels movement in South Africa, we would. But people are tired of the rhetoric, as you say. So we're going to be engaging with communities. We're going to be listening. And most importantly, we want to put an actionable plan on the table to say to South Africans, we all know crime, jobs, basic services, those are big issues. Here is how we propose to get out of this situation. And I think that plan will be the difference between what we are offering and what others think they can do. But over and above that, it's not about political parties. And that's why we're saying we want to talk to South Africans and we want to come up with a platform and a vision for the future. And when we put together coalitions, it's not about power and sharing the spoils of an election. It's about an agenda to get us out of the situation that we are in.
So, you talk about forming coalitions, and the same problem keeps coming back. One of the problems that the multi-party charter, just for an example, is going to have is exactly trying to bridge all of the divisions in our society. Now, they can be bridged. They've been bridged before. But it's incredibly difficult to do. They've really only been bridged once, sort of. Are you still in talks with the multi-party charter movement? You keep talking about coalitions. Is that a reference to that? And obviously, the Sunday Times and others have suggested you'll be their presidential candidate. Are you still talking to them?
Well, I have had no formal engagement with a multi-party charter. I have had a very general discussion with the DA, which was basically to say, we are here, we're raising our hands, we are looking forward to talking to everyone about a common platform. I think when we think about, and let me just finish on the coalition, I think it's a problem if you form a coalition simply to divide, the power dynamics post an election, who gets what. I think it's important to agree on what is the type of South Africa that we are striving for, and to agree on a platform and a vision and a plan, and to coalesce around that rather than on who gets what.
Okay. Identity matters in our politics, Roger, and you know that. Do you think your party will be able to encourage people to vote for you? And a big part of this, and I must ask this, do you speak the languages that most of the people in our country speak, for example?
I think identity matters, but it's very important for us to embrace once again, because as Murphy said yesterday, there has been an element of re-racialization in South Africa. What we hope to do is to promote a South African consciousness. At the advent of democracy in 1994, we spoke about many cultures, one nation. We spoke about unity and diversity. We haven't talked about those things in a long time. And I think we now need to start to have that conversation once again about what it means to be a South African. And we can celebrate our languages, and we can celebrate our food and all of the things that makes us unique in our communities. But we can step out of that and celebrate our South African consciousness and what it means to be a South African.
Roger Jardine, thank you. Leader of Change Starts Now, the big launch there yesterday. You were there, SFM, 23 minutes after 7. Your views on that on 086 0002032. In the meantime, let's hear the view of Dr. Ralph Mateja, the political analyst. Dr. Mateja, good morning to you. Another new party, another new politician. Do you think Roger Jardine and Change Starts Now will make an impact?
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to SFM listeners. Pleasure talking to you, Stephen. I am listening to this and I'm looking at just trying to picture how the voters will most likely respond to the formation of a new outfit. And Stephen, I also look at history as well here, because we do have history. We have trends that are already emerging, showing us how South Africans are responding to these new political parties. And Stephen, I can say to you that voters are very much welcoming. They have been very much welcoming in recent elections. And I can actually say that a new political party in South Africa, formed by people who do not have, credibility crisis, people that are known within the society, people that are not controversial in a sense of just impropriety. And I think, Stephen, if I look at that picture, it just tells me that they will most likely get 2 or 3%. That's what new parties get in South Africa, because voters are still willing to try out new parties. So I'm not surprised to see this. It points to the fact that existing political parties are not being able to consolidate support. There is still an opportunity for new parties to come out. It also means that South Africans are willing to listen to new parties, as it has been demonstrated in the elections. These parties, new ones, get a very good 3-2% when they start. It is the parties that end up just getting into self-destruction. But as for voters, they're always willing to say, is there a new outfit? Let's look at what its potential has. The problem is these parties, they don't consolidate sufficiently. You have new ones coming in the elections, Stephen, pointing to increasing a fragmentation of our politics as it stands.
The idea of a prominent sort of business person joining politics, I mean, the thing about politics, and this is maybe a bad thing in democracies around the world, but politics has become quite professionalized. People go into politics for a long, long time. It is their profession. You see, some people are better at it than others. But for someone who's never been in politics to come from business and go into politics, is it quite hard to make an impact? I mean, politics and business are very different.
Quite different, Stephen. And even in our society, if you look at our politics, the level of inequality, historical relationship between politics and business, our transition, and usually our political leaders have also almost made it something that looked like a taboo for some of the business leaders to come out and say, we are taking a political platform, we are joining a political outfit. And this is just that moral thing in South Africa where business, usually when you listen to the political discourse, business is always brought up on business come and have a role. And now you're seeing someone, Stephen, saying that, look, we think business should have actually more say. And I think this is the new trend. This is what is happening. We have Trump, who came up from nowhere, although after many years of trying to be a leader, he has always been an outsider. So, Stephen, I think we are looking at these outsiders, people that traditionally we will call them political outsiders. They've not been in the trenches as we conventionally understand political leadership to be. And these are business leaders who are saying, if we can exercise leadership in business, why can't we do it in politics? And they're also saying to the society, Stephen, that, look at how political leaders are leading. This is no better than what we can bring about. So I don't think that society, Stephen, are willing. I used to think that it would be morally difficult for some of the very rich business people to come out. But I don't know whether you call it prosperity politics, as in prosperity gospel, but it is a trend going on, Stephen, whereby societies are more willing to listen to billionaires who are coming out and saying that, look, we have made money, now we can help you in the society. It's no longer a taboo where in the old days people would be asking, you are a billionaire, you cannot take this position, stay within your lane. It's no longer that case. You are right. It's different types of politics. If you have money, Stephen, you can just hire people and stand for parliament. It seems that is what people can do. But should we be discouraging it, encouraging it? I do think that people should feel free. If society is willing to identify those as opportunities for representation, let it be, Stephen. I don't think anyone has got the right to police who becomes political leaders as long as people have got the integrity.
Dr. Ralph Mateja, thank you very much indeed. Political analyst listening to that. Your views. You with SAFM 28 after 7.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning, the Blitzbox.
Yes, their Cape drought continuing. They were humbled. They lost to Australia as well as they suffered a fifth-place playoff defeat to New Zealand. 31-7 was that loss. It was Argentina who went on to beat Australia in the final 45-12 to claim the Cape Town Sevens crown. Now, the Springbok women's Sevens team also failed to replicate their promising start to the Sevens in Dubai last weekend. They finished in 12th position in Cape Town, going down to Japan and Spain. Springbok Sevens coach Renfred Dazel.
There's a few answers that that we got from this tournament. So we'll hopefully work, and the turnarounds is so short between tournaments. In a few weeks' time, you're off to Perth again, and in a week and a half after that, you're into a double and a back-to-back in Los Angeles and Vancouver. So yeah, for us it is difficult. It's 0 out of 5 in front of your home fans, but for us it's all about that last tournament in Madrid, how we can get ourselves back to our goal that we set for ourselves.
And it was the Australian women's team who beat France 29-26 in the final to claim the title. In the meantime, fly half Jordan Hendrickse kicked 23 points as the Lions comfortably beat Perignon 28-12 to open the 2023-2024 Challenge Cup with a win. Soccer action, Royal AM claimed a 3-2 win over KwaZulu-Natal rivals Richards Bay, and it was a DStv Premiership match played at the Harry Gwala Stadium in Pietermaritzburg yesterday. And elsewhere, Tottenham, they secured their first Premier League win since October. Brazilian striker Richarlison, he continued with good form, 2 goals in that 4-1 drubbing of Newcastle United. Yes, Spurs boss Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, through that time, we've had to, sort of show some resilience, and it hasn't been easy. And I've been really not hard on the lads, but I've just been uncompromising and not allowing excuses. But some part of me thinks I've been too harsh on them because, apart from Newcastle, and you can see Newcastle today, they're the only other club probably that's got sort of the injury attrition we have, and it's, hopefully we're getting out the other side.
And that's a wrap off your sport here on Sunrise. We'll bring you more headlines top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Good morning. You with SFM leading the conversation. We'll talk about the new Eskom CEO. That's next. Stage 3 now, Stage 4 later, 7:30.
Thank you, Stephen. In your headlines, EFF leader Julius Malema says the party is doubling its efforts to remove the ANC from power in the Eastern Cape. He says the province is a stronghold of the ANC and should it be removed in the province, it will not have an outright majority after next year's elections. The leader of a new political movement, Roger Jardine, says it is time for all political parties and civil society to unite and work together to bring about political change. He was speaking at the launch of his new political movement, Change Starts Now, in Rivoli, Johannesburg, yesterday afternoon. And Deputy National Police Commissioner for Crime Detection, Shadrack Sibiya, says kidnapping for ransom is growing gradually. This as the World Population Review says South Africa is among the top 10 countries in the world with the highest rates of kidnapping. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. A couple of crash scenes now out of the way around Durban. The one at Cliffdale, Keyridge, Cliffdale, on your way to Pietermaritzburg, that's basically cleared up. The earlier crash as well on the N2 going south towards Higginson Highway, also pretty much out of the way, and no further delays there. M4 at Clarewood Jacobs, that's quite slow on your way into town this morning. M7 to disaster again from Hunstedman Highway, big queues up to St John's Avenue Bridge in the Pinetown area, and 2 broken down trucks coming out of Pietermaritzburg towards Durban, one around Market Road and another down by Umlas Road, so 2 queues to work through there. Crash scenes coming out of Pretoria, the N4 near Rousseau Street, that's on your way to Bronkhorst. Big collision on the N3 south at London Road in Alex, that traffic very heavy from Buccleuch as you come through Limborough Park and into the Alex area, and motorists driving in from Lenasia and Protea Glen, there's been a crash on the N12 at the Golden Highway exit in the Eldorado Park area. Cape Town Marine Drive, super heavy this morning. It's roadworks that have appeared at Loxton Road by Woodbridge Island and Milnerton. That has pushed Marine Drive traffic right back to Bayside Junction. The N1 from Belleville to Kubo, get a change busy, and the N7 queuing at Epping and queuing again out of Goodwood towards Bosmansdam Road off-ramp.
The business update on SAFM.
Raymar Clark, good morning. Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
While both markets are mostly down, it is a big economic week. Central banks in the US, Europe, England, Norway, and Switzerland are set to announce interest rate decisions this week. Around the world, inflation is still high, and central banks are prepared to keep increasing interest rates until inflation reduces and before the US market officially opens later today. The futures market is down. Nasdaq, Dow Jones, and S&P futures are each down 0.1%. In Asian markets, Hong Kong's Hang Seng is down 2%. China's Shanghai Composite is down 0.4%, and Japan's Nikkei is up 1.4%. And the US dollar to the rand is 90 1901.
And then businesses spending over 11 billion rand on solar panels in just 3 months. It's amazing how much money is going to these things.
Yeah, businesses as well as households spent 11.4 billion rand on solar panels from July to September this year. This is according to energy regulator NERSA. Businesses and households are pouring billions of rands into alternative electricity measures to cope with unrelenting Eskom blackouts. Of the 11.4 billion rand, big businesses have spent the most money. For retailers and property groups, solar has proved invaluable to keep their operations running. Retailers like ShopRite, Pepkor and Pick n Pay, as well as property groups including Growthpoint and Redefine, have all installed solar power generation at their facilities between July and September this year.
And the CEO at Northern Platinum very worried about the platinum price. And I mean, we should all be a bit worried about it right now.
Indeed, Paul Dunn is the CEO of Northern Platinum, which is one of South Africa's largest platinum producers. He says another 10% drop in the platinum price would cause financial troubles for platinum companies. The companies will not be profitable and might have to cut more jobs. Dunn says should the platinum price drop to about $800 per ounce, mining companies would be in big financial trouble. The platinum price has fallen by 16% so far this year to reach about $900 an ounce. The decline is due to a slowdown in China's economy and less demand globally for platinum.
Ray McClarkup, thanks very much indeed. Ray, of course, back tomorrow morning. More business news through the day here on SAFM.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Well, lots to talk about this morning. You heard that conversation with Roger Jardine. Lwandle on the line from Gqeberha. Hi, good morning. You want to talk about the Moonshot Pact?
Yes, Stephen. Good morning, Stephen. Great show. I just want to say something. It's not very complicated. And I think the Moonshot Pact misses or obscures. There's a great possibility, Stephen, that the people who vote for the African National Congress are not stupid. There's also a great possibility that the people, the 27 million people who don't vote for any political party, are also not stupid, right? To the extent that the Moonshot Pact, if you read people like Bruce, who's this guy, former Business Day editor, Peter Bruce, you read the article, they have this thing about this tokenistic approach to race, where their policies don't believe in the recognition of race, but in their chase to topple the ANC, there must be some black face, some form of representativity, so an opportunistic understanding of race, right? So I'm not really sure, right, that the people are not voting for the DA, because the Moonshot Pact is a DA project. I'm not really sure that the people are not voting for these people because they just don't like their policies. The DA is averse to redress. The DA is actually an apartheid apologist to the extent that it does not recognize the legacy of apartheid and its effect. There's a great problem in how the ANC has used BEE for its own acquisition, the patriotic bourgeoisie of the NDR, which has failed, but to be so averse to redress as the DA is, and think that by the Moonshot Pact it's going to overcome that. I don't think it will. I'm very sorry. I'm not a political analyst, but I think the Moonshot Pact will fail because the people are not stupid.
All right, so what you're saying is that people are making rational choices.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Lwandle, thank you.
Sir, because just lastly, if there is no political, if the DA is not interested in governing, the question is, can the DA govern in the interest of the majority? That's the question.
All right, Lwandle on the line from Gqeberha. Thank you. Can the DA govern in the interest of the majority, he asks. Chris and Peter Maritzburg, good morning. What are these new political parties? Are they going to lead to change?
Well, they might, for as long as we ourselves begin to change. We can no longer continue to treat politics as a transaction. That's for as long as it's somebody who's going to do something for me, therefore I'm only interested. As South Africa needs to change our relationship with politics and become active. I mean, a country like Rwanda has changed, and it's one of the fastest growing countries in the continent, precisely because people took it upon themselves to reset the country on a new trajectory. And that is what we need as a people. I mean, the 14 or so million who are not voting, really, it's a shame upon them. This is the time that calls on each and every one of us to play a role and redefine the future that we want. And it's not going to be politics. Politicians are self-preserving. That's very key. The fact that they are emboldened to even predetermine how the future should look like is shameful. And we as South Africans have allowed them to do so for over the years because we have stayed outside of politics. It's time we all pull up our sleeves and really play and get to the arena.
All right, Chris, thank you. He says everyone must get involved. Interesting. I mean, you can't force people to vote, I don't think. But it's an interesting idea, and other people have suggested that. Chris in the line from Pietermaritzburg, thank you. You know the number 086 000 2032, 19 minutes now to 8.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
Well, finally, confirmation on Friday. Dan Murakane will take over as the new group CEO at Eskom next year. He's currently the CEO at Tongaat Hewlett. He was the group head of capital at Eskom until 2015. He was then suspended. Testimony at the Zondo Commission showed he had been suspended by people who wanted to implement state capture. They wanted to indulge in corruption there, and as I understand the testimony, they suspended Murakane because they thought he would stop them. Chris Yelland is an energy expert. As you know, he joins us now. Chris, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen, and to your listeners.
There's a long history between Dan Murakane and Eskom. I'm sure, in fact, personally, it must have been quite a difficult history for him. Is he the right person to come back and try and fix the problems Eskom has?
Stephen, I've been approached by about 10 media to give comment on his appointment, and I have resisted and declined all of them. And yours is the first that I've responded to. But I'm not going to say whether he's the right person or not, because, in South Africa, as a recent chairman of Eskom told me a few days ago, we have a disturbing habit of heaping praise in two situations. Firstly, when a public person is appointed to a new high-level position, and secondly, we heap praise when he dies, irrespective of the realities of the situation. I'm going to let the facts and the new CEO speak for himself. I think it's wrong to heap praise before a person has even taken office. He needs to be judged on his actions and his achievements rather than on some glib words of a so-called analyst like me.
Okay. Eskom's been without a CEO for a long time. Andrew de Ruyter left, I think, was it March, Chris? Then he'd said he would go before then. When Murakane takes over, Eskom will have been without a CEO for a year. Has that been a problem? And I know Khalib Kassim's been the acting CEO during that time, and I presume as Murakane arrives, Kassim will, I presume, retire from Eskom, I think.
Well, it is a problem, obviously, because, an interim CEO is actually not a leader. He's a manager to manage the ship whilst a new CEO is appointed. So he's not there to be a deep strategic thinker or to look at the utility from the point of, driving it to become a utility of the future. He's not there for his vision, but there to manage the situation on an interim basis. So to go without a year with a leader, with the necessary vision and the goal for the long-term future of the company, is of course problematic, and it means that there's deferment of a whole lot of important decisions, no matter how well. And I think Khalib has, handled it admirably in the interim, but he's not the CEO. He's the acting CEO in an interim management position.
So the incoming CEO has been appointed, as I understand it, formally by the board of Eskom with the concurrence of the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan. The minister and I suppose cabinet in the end has signed off on it on Friday. Yesterday, the electricity minister, Khonsentsura Makgopa, said he was welcoming Morakane to the position. We've seen in the past that politics can play a role in these things, and the energy minister, Gwede Mantashe, can be quite important as well. Is politics still going to be an issue now for the incoming CEO?
I believe so, yes. Electricity is a sort of seen as a social good. It is highly politicized. And Eskom is not just a typical conventional business where the CEO can reinvent the company, its product, its focus, etc. It is really straitjacketed and bound, handcuffed, you might say, in the way it operates, and the politics plays a huge role, and I'm sure that'll continue. I think. Government learned a kind of a lesson about appointing people like the Rata, who were perhaps seen as somewhat independent and visionary and forward-thinking. And I don't think that's what government wants. They want a person who will do what they're told, and a party man, at best. So I think it's inevitable that the CEO of Eskom will not have a free hand going forward and will be bound by party and government.
The other event that I think is going to happen this week in the electricity space is the draft integrated resource plan, I think, is going to be published. The timing is a bit complicated. It's the sort of last working week of the year. How important is that going to be?
Well, look, the IRP, I suppose, is an important document, but it's becoming less important as time goes by, because in the past it has been very much seen as prescriptive. But going forward, and if you look at the new draft electricity regulation bill, the integrated resource plan for electricity is going to be more indicative than prescriptive, and I think that's an important change to be welcomed. And I hope that bill goes through and becomes an act of Parliament. But I do think it is important even to have an indicative IRP. It gives some direction to industry and investors and the country as to which way things are looking, as we head into the future, and gives guidance to the direction that the country could take and the kind of investments that are needed. So I think we should have an IRP for electricity. I think it should be indicative as opposed to prescriptive. And I think, the private sector and customers of electricity should be given the flexibility necessary to become part of the solution and to make their own investment decisions. And I don't think all the power should be vested in a backward-looking Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy.
Chris Yellen, thanks very much indeed. Do appreciate it. The energy expert there. Strong views as always. 12 minutes now to 8.
The argument of who will lift the Carling Knockout Cup will be concluded by the referee's final whistle. Stellenbosch FC and TS Galaxy FC tackles each other for the big prize at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. Who will prevail, eThekwini? Stellies or the Rockets? Catch the Carling Knockout Cup final between Stellenbosch FC and TS Galaxy FC on Saturday, 16th December at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #We love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM is sharing the festive spirit by giving away 5,000 Rand to 10 lucky winners. To enter, SMS SAFM Festive, followed by your name and what the festive season means to you to 41391. And you could win. Tune in to SAFM throughout December and we could be calling you. SMS is charged at R1.50. Free SMSs, free minutes, and SMS bundles do not apply. Terms and conditions apply. Visit sfm.co.za for more information. SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. A couple of crashes to bring you up to date with one on the run-in from Lenasia and Protea Gladys on Joburg's N12 eastbound, just approaching the Golden Highway exit El Dorado Park. Also, an earlier crash on the N3 southbound, just out by London Road, is causing delays. In fact, there's another one before Marlborough Drive, so coming up a Clue interchange on your way to Edenvale, it remains a busy run through. The crash at Cliffdale on your way to Pietermaritzburg, that is cleared. The collision on Durban's N2 south going past Cement Factory towards Chatsworth, that is also cleared as well. Breakdown in the roadworks going north between Kwamashu and Gateway, so that's heavy. And two breakdowns on your way to Durban, one at Market Road, another in the roadworks at Amlas Road, so two queues to work through there. And then there's a broken down vehicle near Choto Motala going west, going inland through Pietermaritzburg, so another really sizable backlog there. Cape Town, a reminder of the roadworks on Marine Drive at Loxton Road in the heart of Milnerton, that's near Woodbridge Island, so that stays heavy. Plenty of traffic on the N1 inbound, it's slow through Brackenfell, and then from Plattercliff Hill all the way through to the Kuberg interchange, looking quite tight this Monday. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
10 minutes to 8 the time. Good morning. You know the number. Sam on the line from Hout Bay. Sam, hi. All of these new political parties, what do you think?
I think it's a good thing, Stephen. We've got to adapt to changes. We can't just be going on the same old road 30 years down the line. We must embrace these new people coming up. I think it's something good. Change is good. Change is good.
Do you think any of them are actually going to do well, Sam? I mean, do you think any of them are going to make an impact? And that's really the question, isn't it?
Well, being a coalition, if they stick to those principles of the coalition, they will do well, Stephen. What I don't like is this. For example, Jardine coming in. Why doesn't Jardine go to these existing parties that have formed a coalition? Why start another thing? I don't see why should he do that. I mean, it is not a question of ego or self-interest. I don't believe in that. There are existing good parties that are there in the coalition. Join one of them. Why start a new thing? What do you think is going to pick up?
Yeah, I suppose the risk is you just have, and Dr. Matega pointed to this, you just have a fractured politics, all of these little parties doing different things, and then it gets very complicated in Parliament later.
Exactly, Stephen.
All right.
Exactly.
Sam and Hout Bay, thank you very much indeed. He's quite keen on the idea of new parties, though. Do you believe they're going to make a difference? 086 000 2032.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Well, over the last little while, we've been hearing about residents in Westville, and for a time, they refused to pay their rates to the city of eThekwini, and this was because they believed they were not being treated properly, they weren't receiving services. In the end, a court ordered that they must pay their rates and services bill, so they had to pay for their lights and water and their rates, and they did, as I understand it, pay that money over to eThekwini. But now in Buffalo City, in the Eastern Cape, people there want to do the same thing. They're very frustrated with the services they're getting. Leonard Nkumbese is the National Community Dialogue's founder and chair. Leonard, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen, and your viewers at home. Look, we are not going to do the same that Westville has done in eThekwini. Ours is different. We're going to take an example like take one ratepayers case, and then we go to court. Now we're taking a case of someone who has lost a dispute against BCMM, and then that dispute hasn't been resolved. And unfortunately, instead of resolving that dispute, BCM went on block that particular person from accessing electricity or disconnecting them, in despite of that person has already lost a dispute. If you check in our constitution, section 102, that is stipulated clearly, subsection 1 and subsection 2. That's where the failure is. They don't read that 102 in the constitution at all. They only pick and choose what is favoring to them as the municipality. So what we're going to do here, we're going to send a message or we set an example for all ratepayers in South Africa that the judgment that we're going to get here is going to be liberating all the ratepayers of South Africa who are being victimized and who are being used or sucked by the municipality.
Okay, why do you think Buffalo City is behaving in this way? Why are they, from what you say, behaving so badly towards your members?
You know, the problem here that I can state clearly, the same constitution that we're supposed to be guided by, the same people that are administering the municipality, they don't understand and they don't read. We are having leaders who are not leaders, but who are just deployed, politically deployed, and even to administer the administration. We are having people that who are just there to get monies for their own personal gains, not to service people in a right manner. So that's where the problem is. In fact, in the entire South Africa, we lack leadership. We lack leaders. Unfortunately, we have people who are just there, deployed by their factions from their political parties. Not that they qualify. They don't have qualifications to be in the positions, but they are deployees of certain faction or certain political parties. You find that someone who's got grade 12 is leading people, is managing people who are having degrees, who are having honors and whatsoever. So what do you expect? What kind of efficiency you expect in that? The entire South Africa is having this challenge, and we need to look at it and deal with it. Otherwise, we are in a mess.
Okay, so you want things to change. If you win a court case, then do you believe? I mean, are you confident that you're actually going to have the actual that your legal case is strong? Have you spoken to lawyers already?
We are busy consulting. Unfortunately, I am not consulting with one legal firm. So we have to compare the legal opinions, maybe up to 5 legal representatives. Then out of 5, if we get 3 positive, then we go on with the intended action. And this will not only help BCM ratepayers, but the entire ratepayers in South Africa. It will be an example, because whatever the judgment we get there, and I tell you now, if we do it in a proper and a right way, that I wish we do this, all South Africans will be liberated from this corrupt and this cruelty of municipality towards ratepayers. So we are going to win. I have no doubt, as long as we do as we're supposed to do this whole process. It's a pity, it's not an overnight thing. We have to make sure to follow the right steps and then and ultimately get to court and win. We have won against BCM not once. We have taken them to court on many occasions.
There's so many things happening around local councils at the moment. From what you say, do you believe the people in charge just don't actually know how to run them?
Can you repeat that question?
Do you believe that the people who are running councils don't know how to run them?
You know, the problem that we're having here, Stephen, is we're having people who are remote controlled in those positions. I am the mayor, but I'm not the mayor. There are mayors behind the scenes that are remote controlling me. What should I do? What I should not do? You know, I don't do what I'm supposed to be doing, what is supposed to be done according to the law and according to the constitution. I'm just doing what my bosses behind me are instructing me to do. So it's like a useless position where you occupy an office, but you are not able to stand up and do what you're supposed to do and what is right. Hence, we are calling to all South Africans as National Community Dialogue that we need to come to a point where we have a South African National Ratepayers Association, which all the municipalities are affiliating in it, all the ratepayers, where we will be able to represent them in court of law when it's necessary, because unfortunately people can't afford the law cost and advocates cost. So now that's why the municipality and the government is taking advantage of the people, because they know they can't take them to court. They have to pay a lot of money. So we stand here as National Community Dialogues and saying,
all of you who need to be assisted, whether through court processes, we are here and we are available. You are not going to pay to us. We are going to help you because we are the non-profit organization. We have law firms that we work with. You can contact us and then we'll help you wherever you are in South Africa.
Leonard, thank you very much indeed. Leonard Ngumbese is the founder of the organization National Community Dialogues. And you hear, of course, so much frustration with cities, with councils around in so many parts of the country at the moment. And I think there's a sort of sense of that they just aren't working. I mean, obviously, we sort of know that in many places, don't you? If you drive around, if you look around, you'll see that. So I think people really are very frustrated about all of that. Lots to come. We'll talk about safety on the beaches over the holiday season. We'll talk a little bit also, of course, about freedom of expression, how to judge what you can say and what you can't say. It's Monday morning, last working Monday of the year. You with SAFM leading the conversation. It's 8 o'clock. Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 38462. Now that's good news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thank you, Stephen. In your top stories, Malema takes aim at deposing ANC in the Eastern Cape, and unions in Mafube municipality call for urgent intervention. This is SAFM News. A very good morning. I am Luyanda Maume. EFF leader Julius Malema says the party is doubling its efforts to remove the ANC from power in the Eastern Cape. He says the province is a stronghold of the ANC, and should it be removed in the province, it will not have an outright majority after next year's elections. Speaking in East London at the EFF's Provincial Ground Forces Forum, Malema says the Eastern Cape remains underdeveloped due to lack of proper leadership.
The survival of the ANC depends on the Eastern Cape. Everywhere else, the ANC is failing dismally, except in the Eastern Cape. That's why in the Eastern Cape, a double effort must be put in place so that the ANC fails in the Eastern Cape, and when it fails in the Eastern Cape, it fails the whole of South Africa.
The leader of a new political movement, Roger Chadin, says it is time for all political parties and civil society to unite and work together to bring about political change. Chadin was speaking at the launch of his new political movement, Change Starts Now, in Rivali, Johannesburg, yesterday afternoon. The movement, Change Starts Now, is set to participate in the 2024 general elections. Chadin says South Africans should have other options to choose from apart from the ANC in the upcoming polls.
We should not be forced to choose between those who only want to break things and those who have long ago forgotten how to build things. We should not act as if we have no choice, and that we have no choice but to let the ANC back into power. This government, which has become the face of corruption, the face of an uncaring, self-absorbed and incompetent state, there is another way.
The case against rapper and TV presenter Jub Jub is expected to resume today at the Johannesburg Magistrates Court. He is facing charges of rape, attempted murder, and assault charges. Jub Jub, whose real name is Molemo Maruhanye, handed himself over to the Brixton police station earlier this year after a warrant of arrest was issued against him. Deputy National Police Commissioner for Crime Detection Shadrack Sibiya says kidnapping for ransom is growing gradually. This as the World Population Review says South Africa is among the top 10 countries with the highest rates of kidnappings in the world. Statistics reveal that from 2022 to 2023, there has been 15,000 kidnappings in South Africa. Sibiya says they have put together a multidisciplinary team to focus on the trend.
We actually connect both international and local. And seeing that we do have this problem at hand, what happened then is that we put a multidisciplinary structure in place that consists of various experts within the South African Police Service to look into this aspect and to make sure that the perpetrators of this phenomenon are actually put behind.
Municipal Workers Union Imatu at Mafube local municipality in the Free State has called for urgent intervention by both provincial and national departments of Treasury and cooperative governance. This follows an announcement by the municipality that it might not be able to pay employees' salaries for December, January and February. In a memo, the municipality advises employees to make arrangements with their creditors accordingly. The memo also states that the situation is brought about by the Municipal Workers Retirement Fund, approaching the High Court to get an order to attach the municipality's accounts. Imatu shop steward Tsepo Tsotedzi blames the municipality's crisis on an absence of proper management. Tsotedzi says non-payment and late payment of salaries has been an ongoing issue in the municipality for at least 7 years.
They will forever appoint incompetent middle managers to act on the position of directors, whilst there are people who can act on those positions. And we are currently, as the municipality, without directors. So can the national and provincial COGTA and National Treasury intervene in the municipality as a matter of agency?
And finally, a BBC investigation has established that about 200 former members of Afghanistan Special Forces who were trained by Britain face imminent deportation back to their Taliban-controlled homeland. The BBC's Joe Inwood reports.
Known as the Triples, Commando Force 333 and Territorial Force 444 were the elite of the Afghan army. When the Taliban returned, many fled to Pakistan, knowing they would be targets for revenge killing. 2 years on, and we've learned around 200 are still there, having been rejected by the Ministry of Defence Arab scheme. That's despite the fact they were set up, trained and funded by the UK. In response, the British government said it had helped around 24,600 Afghans to safety and that each Arab application was assessed individually and in accordance with published policy.
Recapping your top story, EFF leader Julius Malema says the party is doubling its efforts to remove the ANC from power in the Eastern Cape. For SAFM News, I am Luyanda Maume. Headlines at 8:30.
Luyanda, thank you. Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out. Is balancing your income statement harder than finding a spot on a popular Durban beach over December? Outsurance is so confident that they can beat your car insurance premium that you can ask them for 500 Rand if they can't. That's a monthly saving on your current premium or 500 Rand cash. Claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years, ask for 1,500 Rand. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. That's out to 38462. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer news. Pitso Mosimane is linked with a job in Nigeria. And we have rugby news. Leinster, they've joined the race now to sign the Springbok lock, Argies Neyman. Let's find out more just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Pretoria's N1 South now busy with a crash at Rigel Avenue. If you're on your way out of Pretoria down to Joburg queues from as far back as Garsfontein. There's a bit of pressure on the northbound side as well from the R21 moving up towards the Garsfontein exit. Crime scene and a crash. All of this unfolding on the N3 South at Alex. So from Buccleuch, it's quite a heavy backlog going down to the London Road exit where the London Road off-ramp is closed because of that crime scene. A crash just after Malabongwe Drive on Joburg's N1 running north. Couple of breakdowns between Pietermaritzburg and Cato Ridge this morning. One at Market Road and another at Umlas Road. So in the roadworks, you've got a couple of sections down to single lanes, and that's heavy. Also, breakdown into north before Gateway, so heavy pressure as you line up from the Kwamashu area. And Cape Town today, a reminder that Marine Drive is heavy into Milnerton. That's due to some roadworks around Woodbridge Island territory. And Clarence Drive around the coast, linking Gordons Bay to Royales. We've had confirmation this morning that the section of road on Clarence will be reopened in time for this afternoon's peak drive home at 4 p.m. But a note, there are 6 sets of stop-go controls on that section of roadway.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 after 8, good morning, you're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Lots to come in the next little while. Obviously, the sort of holiday season getting going, and I think everyone's hoping for a busy holiday season. I think so for 2 or 3 reasons. The one is a lot of people just need a break. I think that's a big thing. Just need a break. Just need to do something different and spend time with family. I think that's part of it. We've been through a tough time. Everybody has, as you know, from at least the beginning of the pandemic. In many cases, I suppose most cases, actually long before that. Then there's the issue of the sort of holiday economy. Money needs to go into places in the Eastern Cape and Limpopo and, yes, Durban and all of that. So we'll talk about that, and I think that's so important. So we'll talk about that. Have you paid more or less? Have you sort of drunk more or less fizzy drinks? I got that right, more or less fizzy drinks. Since they put the price up, since they introduced the sugar tax, has it made any difference to you? I sort of wonder if the sugar tax works. We'll talk about that in the next little while as well. You know the number 086 000 2032. It's 9 after 8.
You see, change happens, and it improves our lives. Change is good. It opens doors to new horizons and leads to a more informed tomorrow. Being in the know is no longer for the selected few. Information is for all of us to enjoy, whenever, wherever. Sunday World, putting the latest stories, sports results, exclusive video content, and celebrity news at your fingertips. To stay informed, download the Sunday World app today. Available on the App Store and Google Play. Sunday is just the start.
Manchester United ladies and Liverpool ladies will never sleep well at night until they reach the summit. They refuse to share points as they are both interested in victory. This is the FA Women's Super League. Who will have a great day during the festive season on the field of play? Catch Manchester United ladies up against Liverpool ladies on Sunday, 17 December at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
10 after 8. Good morning. Rachel on the line from KwaZulu-Natal. Rachel, hi.
Hi, Stephen. Fictitious name, hey?
It's not a fictitious province, though, Rachel.
Thank you.
At least you're
Because
honest
you want
about
a
it.
name. I'm
Yes.
normally anonymous because you want a name, so it's a fictitious name. Anyway, I want to talk about the guest you had on your show earlier on.
Yes, from
about
Buffalo City,
racism, nepotism, favoritism in the municipality. He is 100% correct. You know how many people go through that?
Mm.
It's unbelievable. I went through that for over 20 years. I ended up with cancer because of the stress from the municipality.
Sure.
You know, for every simple reason, they got something nasty to tell you. They write nasty things on your statement of account. You know, I want to tell the gentleman, go through it. If he wants a witness, I will bring all my documents and come to court what the municipality does to the people.
What did they write
And
on
what
your
they've
account?
done to me, you know, your colleague, Sakina Kamwendo, she
Mm.
talks about ANC and everybody else because she's very justifiable like every one of you. And Kathy, they were slapped with a big bill. So was I. I was slapped with a big bill. I was told that I'm stealing water. I live alone. I was told I was stealing water. I'm stealing lights. I'm stealing everything. And yet I pay everything for the past 50 years I'm paying. That's how you can be victimized by the... You know, I'm victimized by the lady because she received 2 lawyers later because it took her 6 months. She cut my lights off. 2 years I didn't have lights. And because it took her 6 months and she didn't... 6 months she did not resolve the problem. Not 4 months. So in 6 months I cannot... You know, with the municipality, within 6 months you must do your whatever you have to do.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know why it is like that, because for the public it's 3 years. If you need to claim, you claim within 3 years. And if you need to claim for the municipality, you need to claim within 6 months. It should be the same. For the public and the municipality, it should be the same. We must be able to claim within 3 years and not 6 months. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, even the attorneys you go to is looking after their interests. The attorneys refused to make a claim for me for all my damages. My 2 fridges got damaged within that 2 years because it was corroded and the gas ran out and a whole lot of things happened. And you know, I can give you every document, every letter that I've written to the municipality. No response. You don't get a response. You know, and you know, the gentleman is 100% correct. If he wants, if he's going to court, tell him he must give. I'll give Tapelo my information. He can give it to the gentleman.
All right, Rachel, we'll keep your number. Thank you. We've got to be quite careful about what we help with and what we don't, but we will keep your number. I'm sorry that happened. I can hear that it still has a big impact on you, that you carry it very closely and that it's having a big impact on you. And I'm sorry. I know that problems with councils can ruin a life. I know people who've, and seen reports of people who've literally left a property because they haven't been able to get the light switched back on. And Rachel, I'm really sorry that happened. So let's see if we can do something there. Thank you. Janus in Cape Town. Janus, hi. Issues of the elections?
Yes. Hi, Stephen. I asked you before, Stephen, about election date. I think now it's more clear to go for the election day
On a Sunday.
On the Sunday.
Yes.
Why on Wednesday? If even why not on Friday? So people who've got the
Have a long
rest.
weekend, yeah.
Oh, of course. So
Yes.
maybe if you can ask the commission, whatever. But also, if you allow me, can we have an honest discussion about advantage or disadvantage of communism and capitalism? So bring some people who have the knowledge about it. I lived in Poland for 31 years, and now for 43 years. I've got some experience as well. I can add it to that one.
All right.
But I think we can have an honest discussion, because our country, our leaders only support. When they are comfortable for them, they support capitalists like Americans and done. But when it's comfortable, they support Cubans and Russians. So, but people should know the truth about this system.
All right, Janusz, thank you. I can hear strong views on that, and I know people who lived in Poland and left Poland during that time will have strong views, of course. Bongani and Mpumalanga High. Rates and the way that councils treat you. Good morning.
Good morning, SG. Yes, SG. It's happening, I think, throughout South Africa.
The
But
councils
now-
treating people badly, you mean?
Exactly. You know, Stephen, what I suspect is that if the section in the location, maybe one of the section people are maybe privileged to go and pay the rate for municipality, then the other side of the section maybe is those people that are living in the location or something like that. They don't have that much money to service. So now what they do, this municipality, they take those accounts for those people that does not pay the account of municipality. They put it to those people that are always there in the counter to pay for their savings. It's amazing, Stephen, because sometimes you get maybe let's say 2,000 this month. Next month is going to skyrocketing. Then it's 360,000 something.
And they do the estimates, and then the estimates are all over the place. Yeah.
Exactly. So now I don't know, but it's happening all over. I think half of South Africa. We have that problem.
Yeah. Bongani, thank you. Look, I think in the end what we have to do really, if you were to ask me, and I'm no expert on this, is I would say that everyone needs to go prepaid. And I know that brings other problems, but I think in the end, if you want accurate billing, prepaid really is the answer. I think that's what it boils down to. 16 after 8.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Well, we've been looking a little bit ahead to what is likely to happen over the sort of festive period, over the holidays. The National Sea Rescue Institute now just issuing a big warning. Please be careful on our beaches. Craig Lambinon is the spokesperson at the National Sea Rescue Institute. Craig, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning. Thank you very much. And good morning to all your listeners.
You particularly want people to make sure that there are actually lifeguards on duty when they go to beaches.
Yeah, so we're asking the public to go to beaches where the lifeguards are on duty. So quite often you go to a beach, there's no lifeguards on duty, but yet each municipality on their website shows where lifeguards are deployed to the beach. Understandably, the coast we've got a huge coastline. So it's not every beach is protected by lifeguards, but there are multiple beaches in each municipality where lifeguards are on duty, and we're asking families to go to those beaches and swim during the times that the lifeguards are actually on duty. They out there to protect the public. They're looking out for where rip currents are forming. Understandably, rip currents form at different places constantly throughout the day. So lifeguards look out for that. They'll move their flags, those red and yellow flags, away from the rip currents. Then they point their torpedo buoys and they use their referee whistle to call to the public members to move left or right. And that's part of the unsung heroes are the lifeguards. They're taking care of literally thousands of preventative rescue operations every day, where they're preventing public members from getting into difficulty. And that's why they post at those beaches. Everybody wants to go and cool off, and you obviously want to find a quiet place to go and cool off. It's not the right thing to do, especially at this time of the year. The hardest thing we have to do is to call a family to let them know that their loved one isn't coming home. It's an extremely difficult and traumatic experience to have to endure. And we want everyone to see through this summer vacation time, and we want them to see through 2024 safely.
And Craig, is alcohol also a problem? I mean, you're not technically allowed to drink alcohol on a beach. It's a public place. But is that an issue?
Correct, and absolutely, yes, it's an issue. So we are appealing to the public, don't drink alcohol when you go swimming. It dulls your senses. If you get into difficulty, it's going to slow down your reaction time. Law enforcement officers and police are stationed at beaches checking for alcohol. At some beaches, there's actually an entrance point where they check people's bags to see that people aren't bringing alcohol to the beach. But it's just really for everybody's goodwill and everybody's well-being and for the enjoyment of everybody. You don't want people on the beach intoxicated and causing trouble. And unfortunately, that can happen. But it's no different to your swimming pool at home. If you're having your family around for a day at the pool, your swimming pool itself should have a cloak of safety around it. We've appealed to parents to make sure that you have a responsible adult watching over children while they're in the water swimming, whether it's on the coast, inland waterways, or even your swimming pool at home. But don't be distracted. Don't be distracted by your cell phone, by WhatsApps on your cell phone, or by phone calls. You need to physically watch the children. Drowning is silent. When a person drowns, they simply slip underwater. And before you know it, you look across the pool or across the river or across the dam or the lake or even at the coast, and your child is missing. And then understandably, it becomes an extremely difficult situation to deal with when you don't know where your child is now and you have to search for them. And the worst thing to see is to see your child lying at the bottom of a swimming pool.
No, it's the worst thing. And also, you've asked, we don't normally give out numbers, but I'm happy to in this case. You're actually asking people to put numbers in your phone, your number in the phone. If there's a crisis, they can call. Am I right? It's 08709497774.
That's the NSRI's 24-hour emergency number. Another number you can use is the 112 emergency number. And in fact, we are asking people, don't hesitate, phone both of the numbers. In an emergency response, we've got a very swift response. In cooperation with city councils around the coastline, municipalities around the coastline, and the emergency service, when we get the call, everybody gets activated at the same time. It's a massive response. NSRI, lifeguards, fire and rescue services, ambulance services, police, water policing and dive services, police search and rescue, everybody gets activated at the same time. It's a massive response. We just want to get a floating object to the person in distress as quickly as possible, because seconds can mean the difference between life and death. If that floating object is a rescue swimmer or a lifeguard physically swimming to the person with their torpedo buoy, if it's one of our pink rescue buoys stationed around the coast that the public members have thrown towards the person who's in difficulty, or if it's a helicopter or a rescue craft, it doesn't matter to us. We just want to get that floating object to that person as quickly as possible, because that is what will aid to save their lives.
Craig, thank you and good luck for the holiday season. Craig Lambinon is the spokesperson for the National Sea Rescue Institute. So 1112 is the one number. The other is 087 094 9774. I will give it to you again in a moment. First, Mzwandile in Gqeberha. Mzwandile, what happened to you?
Yeah, hey, Steve Ovo. Actually, last year, my friend, I nearly drowned. I'm based in Port Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So what had happened is we were swimming along the coast. What is that now? At the beach, there's a beach here called Summerstrand.
Yeah.
And what I did not know, and only subsequently learned after, is a rip current. So while I was diving into the water, by the time I opened my eyes, the water had drawn me 5 meters, 10 meters into the sea. And now a rip current, how it happens is it's fast-moving water underneath, which you are not able to see with the naked eye. My friend, I was helped by a rod, a small cliff that I held onto. Now the point I'm making is, I was literally 50 meters from the lifeguard, but they didn't see that happening. So what I just wanted to add to what Craig was saying is, what we actually need is clearly defined danger areas along the beach. That is what they don't have. What you'll find is, yes, they would have 2 poles that indicates calmer water.
Yeah.
But what we actually need is clearly defined danger areas that says do not swim here, rip current or whatever the case might be. I mean, it took me nearly that drowning for me to actually understand what a rip current is. And I was lucky to have survived that.
Yeah, and Zondile, I mean, that's scary. And I've had that feeling of being pulled out. I was very lucky, not nearly as bad as you, but I know that feeling. It's a very scary feeling.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly.
All right, Mzwandile, thank you. And thank you for sharing the story, actually. Always good to hear someone who's sort of been through it, I mean, in a sort of horrible way. I suppose that NSRI number, by the way, just to put into your phone, so 112 is the one number, and the other is 087 094 9774. So 087 094 9774. Put that in your phone now as NSRI if you're going down to the coast, if you're going wherever, if you're going swimming, if you're going to be looking after young people swimming, and keep that safe so that you've got people to call. You know exactly what to do. And sometimes, and I know this sounds silly, but I've spoken to emergency experts what to do in an emergency, and they actually say you need to practice, you need to rehearse. If you have an emergency number or something, you need to know where it is in your phone, and you need to practice. And often what happens in an emergency is people don't call for help, or they think someone else has called for help. Just call. Don't mess around. Don't sort of think, oh, someone else will have done it. Just call and make sure. Don't worry about jamming up lines. Just call would be my advice. Lots going on this morning. We've been talking about politics, inevitably, somehow. We've been talking about safety on the beaches as well. You know the voice note number. It's 0614 104 107.
Morning, Stephen. Yesterday I was nearly beaten by a dog in a Tibet backpacking because of the security guard told us that we are not allowed to sit in a group of 5 because it's a meeting. This is how the city of Johannesburg wants. So can you please confirm for us from the city of Johannesburg, is that the law for 5 people? Because I had a picture of me and my brothers when we were sitting there. We were just planning for a braai. We were not having any meeting.
What's wrong with having a meeting? Even if you were having a meeting, I'm sure you're allowed more than 5. And under the Gatherings Act, I think it's called, and there's a sort of protest act, but I think it's called the Gatherings Act. Nothing is, I don't see how you could be stopped from meeting. I don't know what had happened before, what the context was with your conversation with the security guard, but I find that very, very strange. All right, sorry that happened. But I don't think that you can be stopped from having a meeting, even if you wanted to. So what? You're allowed to, I'm sure. And people do that in parks all the time. I don't know that there's ins and outs of that. Maybe there's a sort of history in that area or something. I don't know, but still very interesting. We'll talk about freedom of expression, where the lines are, what you can say, what you can't say. That coming up. You with SAFM's 27 minutes now, after 8 o'clock.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Pitso Mosamane.
Yeah, the former Mamelodi Sundowns and Al Ahly coach has been linked with a move to Nigeria after his exit from Al Wahda in the United Arab Emirates. Jingles, as is fondly known, could coach the Super Eagles of Nigeria. The current Nigeria head coach, Jose Peseiro, is under pressure after 2 opening draws against Lesotho and Zimbabwe in the World Cup qualifiers. Former Super Eagles midfielder JJ Okocha believes Mosimane could be a good fit for the Super Eagles.
Oh, of course, I think Piso, without any doubt, is one of the best African coaches. His track record is there for everyone to be saying, and if we can get a coach like that, I think it will add great value to our football. Coach that got a lot of experience here at home in Africa, and I think, it will be I don't know how true that is, but of course, a coach like that is most welcome.
That's former Super Eagles midfielder JJ Okocha here on Sunrise. Now let's go to rugby. Last week it was confirmed that the Springboks team New Zealand will be here as they return to South Africa next year for tests in Johannesburg and Cape Town. Meanwhile, the world number 2 side Ireland will play back-to-back tests against the Boks in Pretoria and Durban. The Springboks' July test schedule will conclude with the clash against emerging nation Portugal. Ticket sales for the test will open in the new year from the service provider of the hosting union. Now, more rugby. Leinster have been urged to sign the double Rugby World Cup winning Springbok lock Archie Snyman. The Stormers are also chasing Snyman, but their hopes hinge on securing the cash injection promised by their new equity partners. Last month, Snyman's current team, Munster, announced that they will only be keeping one Springbok lock after Jean Klein kept a new contract, forcing the former Bull star to hunt for a new team for the upcoming season. The outstanding lock could now be reunited with Johan van Graan, who, when still with the Irish Provinces coach, was in charge of introducing the Springbok to Munster, and that was in a couple of years. On to netball, England held off South Africa to win the decider 53-50 yesterday and clinch their three-match series 2-1. England will return to action next year by hosting the Nations Cup against Uganda, New Zealand and the World Cup winners Australia. And finally, golf, thunder and lightning, as well as several hours of heavy rain, brought about a suspension of the final day of the DP World Tour's Alfred Dunhill Championship at the Leopard Creek Country Club in Malelane yesterday. Major winners Louis Oosthuizen and Charles Schwartzel share the lead on 16 under overall and were 1 under through 7 holes of their respective final rounds when play eventually called off for the day due to bad weather. The pair are 3 shots clear of fellow South African and nearest challenger Christian Bezuidenhout when the field returns to play today. That's a wrap of your sport on Sunrise. We'll bring you more here on SFM around 12:30. I'm Zaika.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Freedom of expression, that's next. You with SFM leading the conversation, 8:30.
Thank you, Stephen. In your headlines, ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has welcomed more than 50 alleged expelled EFF members back into the party. This after the EFF fired some of its public representatives who failed to organize transport for supporters to the party's 10th anniversary rally. EFF leader Julius Malema says the party is doubling its efforts to remove the ANC from power in the Eastern Cape. Speaking in East London at the EFF's Provincial Ground Forces Forum, Malema says the Eastern Cape remains underdeveloped due to lack of proper leadership. And Western Cape police say they've arrested a high-profile taxi boss in Pretoria who's allegedly linked to serious crimes in Cape Town. Police spokesperson FC Van Wyk says the crimes include extortion, fraud, intimidation, murder, attempted murder and possession of an unlicensed firearm. I'll have details on this and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Joburg's entry south staying slow on the run to Alex. The London Road off-ramp that takes you off the N3 into Alexandra area is closed. Police are dealing with a crime scene there. Motorists driving from Kempton Park in Tembisa across the Midrand are going to be asked to queue heavily on the Allendale Road this morning as you come through Klipfontein View area. That's a big backlog. And there's a bit of traffic just building up on the N1 North towards Allendale Road as well. Going to Durban out of Pietermaritzburg, one stationary truck still with us at Umlas Road. That's enough to push you back towards the Linfield Park exit. Crash on the N2 North before Umhlanga. So that's a queue from Kumashi. That's the second queue. The first one stays between the M7 and the M13 bridge. That queue quite heavy this morning up into the roadworks, and then you get to Kumashi and you queue again into that crash. And if you're driving inland through Pietermaritzburg towards Hilton and Howick, breakdown on the N3, Pietermaritzburg bypass by Chotamatala, so that's quite slow. Cape Town, the M5 running north, a crash at the N2, so that's a little bit sluggish. And those roadworks on Marine Drive in the heart of Milnerton, just by Loxton Road, still causing delays coming through that Milnerton area. Also just worth noting that Clarence Drive is due to be reopened today. That's the R44 linking Gordons Bay and Royale. So the road should be completely clear and open by 4 p.m. Although, given the nature of the damage, there are up to 6 stop-go controls on that section of road once it fully reopens.
The Special Investigating Unit continues to intensify the fight against corruption, maladministration and malfeasance by conducting investigations in the affairs of government departments, municipalities and state-owned entities with integrity and professionalism. SIU investigators do not ask for money from people who are subjects of investigations. Do not be a victim of bogus investigators claiming to be from the SIU. This message is brought to you by Special Investigating Unit, striking against corruption.
Individual brilliance always adds a superb vibe to the team. Sami Sohail of Malawi holds the highest batting average in 2020 internationals. Dhruv Maisuriya of Botswana is the quickest to reach 50 wickets in 2020 internationals, and Francisco Kouana of Mozambique is the first player to score a century and take 5 wickets in the same 2020 internationals. Catch these African stars in action of the BNP Group Africa Cup this December, live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCsport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
26 minutes now to 9 the time. Good morning. As you listen to this program every morning, you will know one of the biggest tensions we have is about what you can say and what you can't say, and about your freedom of expression, about what you can say on the radio and what you can't say on the radio. All sorts of different organizations and institutions have different rules about this, although there's some guiding principles that most people use. So normally, you cannot call for violence against anyone, whether you're talking on SAFM or at your university or in an office or online. Over the weekend in the US, there's been intense pressure on a group of people who lead universities. They were asked in a public hearing last week if someone would be allowed to call for the genocide of Jewish people. In at least one case, the person replied, "It might depend on the context." Here, last week, an investigation by the advocate Wim Trengro found that the under-19 South African cricket captain Daniel Tiger had not done anything wrong by publicly saying that he supported the Israeli Defense Force soldiers in Gaza at the AMSA Jewish Awards held earlier this year. And then also last week, there was the release of a report by the Campaign for Free Expression, which suggested, in fact, it is becoming harder to report and write about certain issues in our country. So then what is happening? First this week, you'll hear from the chair of the Campaign for Free Expression, Professor Anton Harber. Then the comments that have been made about the situation in the Middle East by Daniel Tiger and people in the US. Ben Winks is a lawyer, he's an advocate, he's an expert both in international law and media law. And finally, if our freedom of expression is under attack, how do we protect it? Samkela Mokine is from the Freedom of Expression Institute. We start then with the Executive Director of the Campaign for Free Expression, Professor Anton Harber. Professor Harber, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning.
I think generally most people feel that they can sort of say what they want to say. I mean, if you listen to what people say on the radio every morning, and yet your report suggests there are some threats to freedom of expression at the moment, and particularly around journalism.
Yes, when we must be clear. South Africa has a great deal of freedom of expression that we got from our constitution, defended by our constitutional court. And we are a noisy society and one that speaks out, and we have a lot of open public debate. But what we're pointing to is a number of signs that we think there are threats to freedom of speech and media freedom that if we're not aware of and not dealing with, then it will undermine the wonderful freedom that we have.
What are the threats? I mean, what is it in particular that you are worried about? Is it about that people are hiding information? Is it becoming more dangerous to be a journalist? When I was a reporter, I found there were very few threats made against me. I think people are receiving more threats now. I think it might be more dangerous now.
There's no question there's a rise in threats to journalists, both in real life when they're covering certain events and online. This is coming from the police and sometimes politicians and sometimes the general public when they're covering things. We're very concerned about a series of laws that are coming before Parliament, which threaten our freedom of speech very seriously. There's a sort of wave currently being considered by Parliament that would cut into a number of our freedoms and our capacity to speak out and increase things like surveillance of citizens and journalists. There's assassinations. I mean, there's a great concern that whistleblowers and others are being subjected to targeted assassination. There can't be any greater form of censorship than the fear of being killed for one's views or for information one has. Corruption is a major threat. For example, in the area of arts and culture, corruption in the distribution and allocation of money for artists and cultural workers is really fundamentally affecting their work and their capacity to do their work. So we're pointing to a number of these things that are out there and which need attention, and if we are going to defend the space that we have.
It seems to me that these threats are coming from a whole different group of people in our society. So it's not just sort of government or just the police, and in the sort of bad old days it was kind of one sector was the main threat. It seems to me that actually there are many more groups now that have an interest in attacking journalists or journalism. Why has that happened? Is that just because, is that because journalism's quite successful in some ways?
I've no doubt that the success of journalism in exposing elements of state capture in the past years has meant that many journalists, individually or collectively, are targeted. I think the rise of organized crime in our society means that there are those out there who want to silence journalists and others, and who are quite brutal about doing it. So assassinations and killing of whistleblowers is a major concern. But yes, you are right that it's coming from a number of different sides. And from within the state, I think the State Security Agency is a particular problem. There's this new intelligence bill being looked at by Parliament, which is maybe the most serious attack of all on many of our rights as citizens.
Professor, thank you very much indeed. Professor Anton Harber is the Executive Director at the Campaign for Free Expression. You're with SAFM, 20 minutes now to 9. Your mediated conversation continues. Advocate Ben Winks is an independent advocate. He's an expert on media law and on international law. Advocate Winks, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
The situation in the Middle East has seen a lot of focus on these conversations around freedom of expression. And in our country, probably the most high-profile case has been around Daniel Tiger. He said he supported the Israeli Defense Force. An inquiry found while he may have said something that was offensive, it doesn't mean that he broke the rules of Cricket South Africa. Do you believe that was the right conclusion?
I find that I read the determination by Advocate Trengo Vessi, and I did find some of the reasoning unpersuasive. So, for example, it was found that the rule prohibiting conduct which may be detrimental to Cricket South Africa or may bring Cricket South Africa, the game of cricket, or the individual into disrepute. Mr. Trengo found that can't refer to speech. It can only refer to, bodily conduct, which I don't find persuasive at all. Speech can be conduct. So that's the first difficulty. He also said that, it couldn't have been based on race or ethnicity or religion or anything like that, the language. Praising the soldiers, and therefore it couldn't be a breach of any constitutional norms or equality norms. I'm not quite convinced that that's the case. To be honest, I haven't made my mind up fully about whether it's a breach of the code, but I don't find the reasoning persuasive for two reasons. The first is that when one is praising soldiers in particular, there's another constitutional carve-out that comes into play, which is propaganda for war. So there's hate speech, which is a constitutional carve-out, that's not protected by constitutional free expression. But there's also propaganda for war. Now, while a war is going on, whether it's the war in Ukraine or war in Sudan or anywhere else, and a person uses a platform, even if it's a limited platform, to praise the army itself in controversial circumstances, I think consideration should have been given to whether this amounted to propaganda for war. But then even on the level of ethnic or racial language, I think that there should have been consideration into whether praising the soldiers in the ongoing war could have constituted coded language for discrimination and apartheid against Arabs in Palestine. I don't think that the reasoning was rigorous enough in looking into that. But as I say, I haven't actually made up my mind about whether it's a breach. But the test is whether it brings the individual or the game or Cricket South Africa or the Lions also into disrepute. And I think there's certainly a strong case that it could have brought them into disrepute.
Okay, let's move away from the Daniel Tiga case for a second, but I want to keep the principles the same and still use that example. Would it be wrong then to praise South African soldiers in a peacekeeping operation in the DRC, or as actually happened, they were in Cote d'Ivoire, I think it was, they found themselves pinned down, soldiers were able to basically, our soldiers were able to shoot their way out of that. Would it be wrong to praise our soldiers for doing that? In other words, what I'm trying to get to is, does the identity of the soldiers matter? If you say that praising IDF soldiers could be propaganda for war, it must hold that praising South African soldiers could be propaganda for war.
I think that the context of war crimes or accusations of war crimes in an ongoing war and where a force is carrying out attacks rather than peacekeeping makes it very different circumstances. So whether it's Ukrainian forces or Russian forces committing war crimes against one another, to make a statement, as he said in his defense of the claim, that he doesn't believe so he essentially says that the claims of war crimes are propaganda. So he, in a sense, is engaging in that debate and saying, the soldiers are doing nothing wrong, the army is doing nothing wrong, that the reports of war crimes, etc., are not true. And the same would go, I would add, for anybody praising Hamas for what happened on October 7th. I think that if we look at it from that perspective, that if a cricket captain had said, I praise the Hamas combatants who carried out the attacks on October 7th, which were war crimes and crimes against humanity, there would also be a breach of the code.
So if Ronnie Casrills was a member of Cricket South Africa, he's praised the Hamas attacks, he would have breached the code too?
He certainly would have, in my view.
Okay. So does that mean then that if we're going to talk about the situation in Gaza, you can only condemn both sides, but you can't support either of the armed combatants? You can't support Hamas and you can't support the Israeli Defense Force?
I think in a situation where there's the possibility of disrepute, when you're a captain of a national side, you're a national ambassador and you're getting remunerated by the state. I think there are limits that you undertake on your freedom to speak, voluntarily undertake. Having said that, I don't think he should have been suspended or removed or banned or anything like that. I think a warning would have been sufficient, just as far as the gravity of the offense is concerned, and considering that he's a very young man and is inexperienced in public engagements. But I think that it's one thing to praise activists and to praise civilians and journalists and things like that, but to praise soldiers who have been accused of war crimes is, I think, skirting very close to propaganda for war.
There's another issue, and I want to move away from Daniel Tiga now. In the US, the issue there over the weekend has been around. So there's been very, very lively, difficult debates on university campuses. And as I understand it, what happened was several leaders of universities were asked by politicians whether on their campuses someone would be able to say they supported genocide of Jewish people. And in at least one case, a very senior person has resigned. I think others may follow. And because what they said was, they were asked, would someone on your university be allowed to say they supported genocide of Jewish people? And their response to some of their response would be to say that it would not be wrong to say that depending on the context. And I must say, Ben, I was slightly surprised at that, because to me, I don't think on SAFM I could, should, or would let anyone ever say that they want the genocide of anyone.
Well, the United States has wider latitude for free speech than South Africa does. The United States has no right to dignity or right to equality in its constitution. No expansive right to equality in the sense of freedom from racial abuse, as we have in South Africa. There have been Supreme Court judgments where Nazis have been allowed to march through Jewish communities, which in my view is coded incitement to genocide. The the problem is that it's not only the constitution which could prevent people from walking through a village carrying swastikas, but there's also the code of conduct of the university. Now, what the US university leaders had said there was that it wouldn't necessarily be a breach of the student or faculty codes of conduct. Now, the student and faculty codes of conduct do place greater constraints on free speech than the Constitution does. So when you enter into a society or a community like a university, you undertake limits on your free speech voluntarily. And I think that incitement to genocide would certainly breach any code of conduct. Again, you would look at things like disrepute. So there are two levels to this. One is whether the students or the faculty could say it, and I think probably under those codes of conduct they couldn't. Generally, employment codes prohibit any form of racial discrimination. Certainly incitement to violence and genocide would come within the compass of some prohibition or other. And then there's the freedom of the university leaders to say that that's okay. And should they be fired or resign, be forced to resign for saying that they would tolerate that kind of speech? I think they're bringing the university itself into disrepute, and I think there's a valid basis to compel them to resign.
Advocate Ben Winks, thank you very much indeed. Really do appreciate it, as you can hear, an expert on international and media law. Complicated issues coming up through all of this. Your mediated conversation will continue in a moment, 10 minutes to 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Here's a look at what you need to know for motoring around the country this morning. Joburg's N3 South, the off-ramp to London Road at Alex remains closed. That's due to a crime scene. There is a bit of pressure approaching that on the main N3 carriageway. The N3's open. It's just the off-ramp that's closed. Coming in from Kempton Park in Tembisa towards Midrand, expect to queue up on the Allendale Road approaching Mastiff Road, and the N1 North between Buccleuch and Allendale looking quite slow as well. A couple of issues around KZN. The N11 remains blocked with truck fires at Majuba Pass. That's between Newcastle and Folkestone. That is a bit of a no-go at this stage, particularly for truckers. They've been under attack since last night. The N2 down at Murchison, outside Port Shepstone, that has been reopened. There's a little bit of delay there, but SAPs are on the scene, and they're clearing that site of overnight protesting. And then Cape Town this morning, M3 up towards Paradise Road at Bishop's Court is slow. The M5 just under a bit of pressure, moving through Maitland in towards the N2 highway, and Marine Drive stays really busy through Milnerton on your way to Cape Town. That's due to some roadworks near Woodbridge Island. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Think big on the Insider SA this Monday evening at 6 as content creator Mihlali Ndamase drops some pearls.
It's constantly about innovating yourself, upping your game.
Learn to spin with
T-Will Touch. I'm letting you come and spend a day and time with me. You already know I'm with the king of spins. Watch me do it.
And Vuyo Oyiya turns her duk into a work of art.
And look where we are today.
That's the Insider SA. This Monday at 6. Repeat Saturday at 1 p.m. and Sunday morning at 10:30 on S3.
Manchester United ladies and Liverpool ladies will never sleep well at night until they reach the summit. They refuse to share points as they are both interested in victory. This is the FA Women's Super League. Who will have a great day during the festive season on the field of play? Catch Manchester United ladies up against Liverpool ladies on Sunday, 17 December at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
8 minutes to 9 the time. Looking at freedom of expression this morning. Samkela Mokine is the Executive Director at the Freedom of Expression Institute in your mediated conversation this morning. Samkela, good morning.
Morning.
It seems to me in the past, the apartheid government would lock you up for saying something. That doesn't really happen now. As far as I know, since we became a democracy, I think there's only one case of someone who went to jail for something they said. What happens instead if you say something that is thought to or deemed to be offensive, you're attacked online, or you lose your job for saying something that people find offensive? It's a big change. Does it still limit people's right to freedom of expression unnecessarily or wrongly?
Yes, it does. It does in the sense that
if you are expressing a genuine view, whether be it in the context of a university, there's a sociology lecturer at the University of the Free State who, in the context of a discussion at the university, apparently said something about whites, or there was a reference made to white being land thieves. It is in an academic context, there's a discussion, and in terms of our law and the Constitution, it's clear that your views, whether they are offensive, shocking, or disturbing, are protected. And once people start reporting you, there's an investigation, and you are found not guilty, the likelihood that you are going to readily repeat those kind of discussions are limited. And then the issue of trolling on social media. You say something that a particular party does not like, and you have thousands of attacks on X or former Twitter, and that prevents you or encourages you not to report about that particular party. So self-censorship becomes an issue.
Is it wrong that if someone says something offensive, they could lose their job? I mean, if you say something offensive about a particular about a particular thing, and that does damage to the institution, we've seen this many times, but the institution itself is damaged, loses money. Other people lose money as a result of something someone said on X or Twitter. Shouldn't the organization have the right to fire you?
You still revert back to our Constitution and what it allows, and I think the issue of context that the previous speaker kept on emphasizing is important, that it's because of our history, whether it's colonial history or apartheid history, that we have reached the point that we have reached, that freedom of expression enjoys the protection that it does. And so it shouldn't really be taken lightly that if in the past people like Biko could be killed for expressing an opinion, and that people would be locked up, and that now we've gone almost to the other extreme where we even allow views that in neighboring countries would get people killed. And that's the context in which we operate. And unless there is a difference in terms of a constitutional decision or constitutional court decision, that must be the law that is respected.
Do you think that we're saying less and less, even though we've probably never legally been as free as we are? Do you think that what people call sometimes the town square conversation, where people are supposed to be heard, do you think that actually we're saying less because people are worried about their jobs or what reaction there'll be or what actually will happen to them on X, or whether they'll be bullied or things like that?
Yes, I mean, I think it hits both ways. There are those that I suspect have got much thicker skins than others. But people become more conscious that, what I say may result in an attack on a massive scale. And therefore you think more before you even say something. And I guess there are people that will just even abandon the idea of posting or saying anything on radio or in a discussion. But there are those that seem to go out of their way to engage and seem to gain energy from it. But, whenever you think about engagements, sometimes we think of it very broadly on a national scale, but that even at community level, that we are having problems where this is highlighted, where people in community social media groups, whether it's Facebook or WhatsApp, are being silenced in a lot of ways, whereby if there's a councillor that has set up a WhatsApp group and you keep on asking why a particular thing is not being fixed in your street, then the person thinks you either know too much or you think you're better, or whatever description that they may have, and they remove you of the media group. And sometimes there are a couple of social media groups in your neighborhood. Then your right to access information around what happens in your neighborhood just gets obliterated like that, whereby you no longer have that access. People make use of that by just removing people.
How do we protect freedom of expression then? How do we make sure that the right is expressed and is expressed that the right is protected widely? In other words, it's protected for everyone.
Yeah, part of what we are doing now in terms of advocacy and people that come from organizations like mine is to highlight the importance of freedom of expression and to make sure that if it is violated, that we do use the courts to ensure that this does not happen, and ongoing education for people to say this is in violation of your right to freedom of expression, and you can't take it lying down. Our organization has got a law clinic whereby if people feel are not sure about their rights being violated, are able to call the law clinic, and we do represent them, anything from the magistrates court right up to the constitutional court. So the courts are going to continue to play a huge role, and the South African Human Rights Commission as well.
Samkelo, thank you. Samkelo Mokine is Executive Director at the Freedom of Expression Institute. My thanks also to the advocate Ben Winks and Professor Anton Harbour, Executive Director at the Campaign for Free Expression, starting us off. Really interesting conversation, actually, about what can be said, what can't be said, where the lines are. And as you know, I mean, this is in a way my job is to sort of patrol that line a little bit. And I know that there'll always be times when I'll get it wrong and people will be irritated, etc. It's the way of things. All right, we will be back tomorrow from Mdu, Stanza, and Paul. Myself, look after yourself. You with SFM leading the conversation. It's 9 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thank you, Stephen. In your top stories, Mbalula welcomes alleged former EFF members to the ANC, and a Cape Town taxi boss arrested for alleged involvement in crime. This is SAFM News. A very good morning. I am Luyanda Maume. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has welcomed more than 50 alleged expelled EFF members back into the party. This after the EFF fired some of its public representatives who failed to organize transport for supporters to the party's 10th anniversary rally. Mbalula was speaking at the Wedela Community Hall in the west of Johannesburg yesterday.
We are strengthened by the presence of these comrades, and there are many others in the EFF. Some have left, whom will be unveiling, joining the ANC pack. We are telling them that we welcome you with open hands. You will not be judged here in the ANC. And then we appreciate the fact that on their own, voluntarily, they chose to come back home, and they've got their reasons why they do so.
EFF leader Julius Malema says the party is doubling its efforts to remove the ANC from power in the Eastern Cape. He says the province is a stronghold of the ANC, and should it be removed in the province, it will not have an outright majority after next year's elections. Speaking in East London at the EFF's Provincial Ground Forces Forum, Malema says the Eastern Cape remains underdeveloped due to lack of proper leadership.
The survival of the ANC depends on the Eastern Cape. Everywhere else, the ANC is failing dismally, except in the Eastern Cape. That's why in the Eastern Cape, a double effort must be put in place so that the ANC fails in the Eastern